Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a hump day edition of the Rodcast. Thank you guys for joining us. Lots to get into on the show. Yesterday was cut down in the NFL, so we'll get into who made the actual 53-man roster for the Cowboys and for the Houston Texans. We'll dive into that. What Longhorns actually were cut and also made rosters. We'll dive into that and get you updated there as well. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain, talking Texas, Colorado State. That's right. Hump day means we're getting over the hump, headed downhill to the weekend, and it is a college football weekend where the Longhorns will kick off their season against Colorado State. So we continue to break down the Colorado State Rams. We'll continue to talk about that matchup, all the X's and O's, the game plan, and we'll dive into some of the other matchups there as well. We'll get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets, look at some of the other 53-man rosters around the league. There's also still a story brewing on the West Coast. Not only do the 49ers got to get that Brandon Ayuk deal done, they got to get the Trent Williams deal done too. Looks like Trent Williams ain't coming to work until he gets a brand new deal. Black Stradamus strikes again. Talked about this yesterday, and I gotta tell you, I think that I think it was very close to happening. We'll get into that too coming up a little bit later on in the show. We'll also dive into some other college football discussion because big college football weekend on the horizon, and all your usual favorites. We got my man Nick Shuley coming in with Setlist ATX coming up in the 9 o'clock. But we got Who Said That, we got Off the Record, we got What the Facts, What the Stats. We got the topic for the big fat poll of the day. So before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid. Pretty damn sure he's underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. We are now into one day until we start getting a lot of college football action on Thursday. There's a little bit on Friday, and then we get into Saturday, and then Texas football and some really good games on Saturday as well. But yeah, tomorrow we're a day away. We just have to make it through today, and then tomorrow night there's football.
Oh man, I can't wait. I really can't. It's gonna be fantastic this weekend. I don't even know what games are coming on tomorrow. I haven't even paid attention. The officials.
There's four teams that are
minor,
top 25, but they're all gonna be blowouts. The biggest game is probably the most fun game to watch. It's probably gonna be North Carolina, Minnesota.
Okay,
it's probably your best game to watch there. It's going to be.
Oh, by the way,
happy
birthday to Mac Brown. Happy birthday! Because Mac had a birthday yesterday, I believe. There you go. Shout out. You're right. I didn't think about that. I didn't even look at those games. Probably because it's not any marquee matchups. But I'm happy that college football is starting. We'll have something to discuss, and we had, of course, those week 0 games, and we'll be talking a lot about some of the big matchups. We'll do a college football kind of whip around as we get closer and closer to the weekend.
Yes.
So for the big games, we won't hit everything. But
yes.
Big games, rivals, we'll dive into that. That's what I miss about college
you get like Clemson, Georgia, and that Notre Dame A&M game this weekend is going to be a lot of fun.
Is it LSU USC?
Yes, that is on Sunday nights. Yeah. That is a Sunday game, but that one's going to be good too.
Pretty cool. Yeah. So I'm looking. I can't wait. I'm giddy.
Yes, some good games going there. Let me introduce my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod Father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
Thank you for the intro, brother. Yes, but NFL discussion to talk about. The dreaded cut down day was yesterday, so we'll get into that. I'll give you some of my personal experiences about cut down day. Not good. Experienced plenty of those and got cut plenty of times. And there are some similarities in all. And I got cut by a lot of different teams too. Similarities in those experiences. So we'll get into that a little bit coming up when we discuss the 53-man rosters. We'll talk Texans and Cowboys. The Cowboys made a trade actually too. I thought it was a savvy move. I think they were getting ready to cut Peyton Hendershot, ended up making a trade with Kansas City, and I'll tell you why that actually does matter in terms of what Kansas City does on offense. But we'll dive into those topics. Lots of NFL to discuss, lots of Texas, Colorado State to get into in that matchup. But before we do any of that, let's get the Horn headlines so we can get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day, and then we'll come back and dive deep into some NFL discussion. But first, the Horn headlines and my man Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped another game to the Phillies last night, getting blanked 6-0. Justin Verlander threw 90 pitches in his second game back from injury. but only made it through 5 innings, giving up 4 runs. The Astros will now try to salvage a game against Philadelphia today with Spencer Arrighetti getting the start. And the Rangers had to wait another day to begin their series with the White Sox, as last night's game was suspended after 4 pitches due to rain. The Rangers will now play a doubleheader today, with Andrew Heaney still expected to make the start for the Rangers in Game 1, followed by a Jack Leiter taking the mound on his third call-up to the majors this season. And that's your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. All right, let's start with the Cowboys 53-man roster, I'm sure, and then we'll get into that Peyton Hendershot trade a little bit and jump over to the Texans. But that's probably the most, I don't know, maybe talked about, probably most discussed topic in the offseason has been the running back position. How is that going to work out? Your running backs on the 53-man roster are Zeke, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn. We talked about how Deuce Vaughn was really impressive those last couple of games in the preseason, and he was your most elusive running back. There's no question. And I think the Cowboys agreed. So Deuce Vaughn gets the spot as the third string running back. And there's Hunter Lewepke, but he is mostly a fullback. But you throw him out there as running back. But he's mostly considered their fullback, and that's your running back room. I mean, like I said, I still think you could use a difference maker there in the running back room. Obviously, you can still move things around before your game day, opening game day roster. But I do like that Deuce Vaughn was able to make it. He's more than just now a feel-good story for the Cowboys. That's a draft pick that actually can pay benefits for him, dividends for him. And the quarterbacks, of course, Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, and Trey Lance. Trey Lance is their third-string quarterback. Your wide receivers, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, Ryan Flournoy. That was actually a little bit of a surprise that he made. And Kevontae Turpin is the one that kind of earned the spot and broke through that not a lot of people thought was probably the Ryan Flournoy story. Tight ends, as we pointed out, we'll get into, they just traded Peyton Hendershot to Kansas City instead of cutting him. But of course, Jake Ferguson is your starting tight end. Then Luke Schoonmaker, who they drafted in the second round a couple of years ago, hoping that he could stay healthy. They haven't really been able to see much from him. John Stevens Jr. and Brevin Spanford is the other tight end. Actually, I remember, I think I got a factoid about Brevin Spanford that I have to go check out. But I want to say the Cowboys liked him initially from even the evaluation process. Offensive line, Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele, Brock Hoffman, TJ Bass, Asim Richards, Matt Waletzko, and Chuma Idoga are your offensive linemen and make it. Your D linemen, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Marshawn Nealon, of course, Tyrus Wheat, Oza Digizua, Mozzie Smith, Chauncey Golston, Jordan Phillips, and Linville Joseph, the guys they just brought in. Linebackers, DeMarvin Overshown, of course, Eric Kendricks, Maurice Lafau, Damone Clark, Buddy Johnson among those linebackers. Your corners, Trevon Diggs, Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson, Andrew Booth, Israel Makuyamu, Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, Marquise Bell, and Wanye Thomas are your safeties. And then your specialists, Brandon Aubrey, Brian Anger, Trent Sieg, and CJ Goodwin are your specialists. All right. Any surprises? I think a couple of surprises are, like I said, the wide receiver position. I think you had a player kind of break through there, and it was a little surprising. And I'll say Deuce Vaughn is one of the surprises too. Not saying the Cowboys won't try to upgrade at running back. We had cut down day. Cowboys haven't made any additions. I'm sure. So I'm assuming the Cowboys like their guy. We like our guys. They like them as much as any of the other options that are out there after cut down day, unless they're going to make a trade, upgrade for a difference maker. And I haven't heard much about that either. So I'm assuming the Cowboys like their running back room right now.
Yeah, I mean, they had the meeting with Dalvin Cook. Last I heard about that was that he has another team he's going to meet with. But even if they added him, the assumption would be on the practice squad to start out, and then see if he gets into the game shape they want him to be and how he runs in practice, and then if they elevate him there. But he would not necessarily be taking a roster spot right off the bat. But yeah, I mean, I went through most of the running backs, seeing who was getting cut yesterday, and there was nobody that was a standout running back that you thought, okay, this guy's an immediate impact player. I mean, like Deontay Foreman is a guy that you love, but it's probably been 2 or 3 years since he's been really, really effective. and he's got cut a couple times now since then. So you wonder a little bit more about if you could bring him in, and how much of a difference is he going to make. But there's most of the guys that got cut were not the bigger name running backs.
No.
So you're not necessarily getting anybody that you're gonna you have to make a trade if you want to go get somebody. I think there's still probably guys available via trade. I mean, we'll get to the Texans in a minute, but they kept more running backs than I thought they would. So there may be guys still really willing to make a trade. The Bears might still be willing to make a trade as well. So there's teams out there that could probably be open to it. But I think that this is now. It would surprise me if they make a deal before week 1.
I've been saying it for, I don't know, forever. You're going to trade for one. If you want a difference maker, you're going to trade for one, period.
I just don't think they're going to make that deal until they go out and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, we like our guys. That is one of the Cowboys. It's one of Jerry Jones's famous sayings. They love their guys. They're a homegrown team, so they're going to give their guys a shot and give their guys a chance. And I understand that. And that's nothing wrong with waiting to see if your experiment, or to see if your development overall, if it actually has a breakthrough player, or if the offensive line ends up being an offensive line that's good enough to provide enough, push in the running game where you don't have to go out and get a difference maker. And it's a compliment more to the passing game. I get all that. I think it's going. I'm not saying it's going to fail, but I don't think your running game is going to be impactful enough. And I think you're going to end up having to juice it somehow, and that's probably the trade they're going to have to make. You'll notice that CeeDee Lamb wasn't on the roster. Remember, he's on the injured reserve, do not report whatever list until they were able to sign him. So once they sign him, then he'll be on the opening game day roster, and then they'll probably bump off somebody down to practice squad or bump someone to IR or something like that. And likely that's either one of those. I mentioned Ryan Flournoy or something like that. I don't know if they could bump him down or bump. Someone said Chume Idoga may start on the IR because, in terms of the roster spot. So it's a lot of different things they could do. But CeeDee Lamb, trust me, he's going to be on there. I know I did mention him, but that's because right now officially he wasn't on the roster. But that's because, like I said, those are more clerical issues that the Cowboys are dealing with. The Peyton Hendershot trade to Kansas City and I believe it's for a late round conditional pick. The conditions, I mean, I'll get some of them to you, but I'm sure you don't really care about the conditions of it. The Cowboys receive a 7th round pick in 2026 if he's on the 53-man roster for 5 games this season, or Hendershot is on the 46-man game day roster for 3 games this season. They will not receive a pick if either are not met, that kind of thing. So by the way, it's important for Kansas City. Kansas City runs more 13 personnel, which is 1 back, 3 tight ends, than anybody else in the league. And so Kansas City, they really do use their 3rd tight end more than any other team in the league uses their 3rd tight end. And I knew they liked Jared Wiley. Jared Wiley ended up, I believe, making their 53-man roster. Yeah, the tight ends are Travis Kelce, Gray, Hendershot's the 3rd tight end, so they're going to use them. Like I said, 13 personnel is something they use a lot of. And then Jared Wiley, former Longhorn, TCU Horned Frog, is their 4th tight end. And from what I hear, they like him as a guy they want to develop. So that's the trade for the Cowboys. Thought that was a good move because the initial reports were they were just going to cut him. If you can end up getting something for nothing, essentially, it's a good move for the Cowboys. Somebody they were going to cut anyway. Texans, getting to the Texans 53-man roster. One of the things that was a little surprising about the Texans 53-man roster, and I think they kept, if you look at it overall, I think the Texans, I thought they did a good job kind of managing the different positions. They probably kept fewer quarterbacks because I think they ended up putting Case Keenum on IR. Not a lot of people expected that to happen. So that was a little bit of a surprise. And they ended up keeping more running backs, I think, than everybody thought too, because as we talked about, we thought they would make a move. So they ended up with 24 offensive, I think they had 26 offensive players, actually, 24 defensive players, and 3 specialists, 1 less QB and 1 less D lineman than everybody thought too. So their offensive players, CJ Stroud and Davis Mills, we thought they'd have a third quarterback, but Case Keenum ended up being put on the IR. Running backs are Cam Akers, Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce, Angbuale, and British Brooks. They have 5 running backs, which I didn't think that was going to be the case. Thought they'd keep 4 of those guys.
Yeah, we
Wide
know
receiver.
Dari is more of a fullback in that situation as well. So
that is true.
So he kind of sits in that fullback, but the British Brooks one was what you were not expecting him to make the 53-man undrafted free agent out of North Carolina. That wasn't even the starter for North Carolina last year.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like I said, it's a surprise. The Cowboys kept 4 running backs, including a fullback. So to keep 5, even if it's a fullback, is still, I think, a little bit more than most NFL teams would. Wide receiver: Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods, Tank Dell, John Mechie, Nico Collins, Xavier Hutchinson, and Steven Sims. At tight end, Brevin Jordan, Dalton Schultz, and Cade Stover. They love them some Cade Stover, and Brevin Jordan's been there for a while. Dalton Schultz is your starter. Andrew Beck got cut, the lifetime Longhorn, who played a fullback / tight end H-back role for them. Offensive line: Kendrick Green, Jarrett Patterson, Blake Fisher, Nick Broker, Shaq Mason, Juice Scruggs, Titus Howard, Kenyon Green, and Laramie Tunsil are your offensive line that made the roster. So that's the running back thing. I think a little surprising. I thought you'd probably have 4 of those, but they really like British Brooks. Defense and special teams: Will Anderson, Jerry Hughes, Daniil Hunter. I'm gonna screw his name up. Fatu Kasi. Is it Fatu Kasi? The I believe number 91 on the defensive line. If I messed his name up, I apologize. Khalil Davis, Derek Barnett, Mario Edwards Jr., and Tim Settle Jr. are your defensive linemen. The DBs: Jalen Petrie, Jeffrey Okuda makes it. They cut C.J. Henderson, Kamari Lassiter, Chris Boyd. Shout out to Chris Boyd, lifetime low one. Jimmy Ward, Eric Murray, Derek Stingley Jr., MJ Stewart, Miles Bryant, and Kalen Bullock are your DBs for the Texans. Your linebackers: Aziz Al-Shaair, Delshawn Phillips, Jake Hansen, the undrafted free agent. A little surprising: Henry Teotihuacán, Neville Hewitt, and Jamal Hill. And your specialists are Tommy Townsend, Cami Fairbairn, and John Weeks are your specialists. So I think they have the linebackers too, because Christian Harris surprisingly also had to be he started the season on IR, and I didn't think a lot of people thought that was the case. I'll throw it out there. I thought the Texans should entertain the idea of trading for Ernest Jones. Remember the linebacker from the Rams? I don't know if they inquired about him. I assume maybe they did, but the Titans, a division rival, ended up trading for him, a 5th-round pick, actually, for a starting linebacker in the league. With the Christian Harris situation, I bet the Texans at least looked into it. I mean, I know they looked into it, but I wonder if they looked into it seriously or just talked about it amongst themselves as an organization. I'm not that well. The Texans had to be prepared for the Christian Harris thing. There's no way they were caught off guard by it. So, like I said, I hope they would have entertained the possibility of bringing in Ernest Jones, another starting linebacker, for a 5th-round pick. Not sure what the Titans are going to do contractually with him. We can get into it later. I actually like that move for the Tennessee Titans. But they have Jake Hansen, who they really like. He can play all 3 linebacker spots, undrafted free agent. They really like him. D'Amico Ryans has been very complimentary of him in the offseason so far. Henry Teotihuacán, the linebacker prospect out of Alabama. He struggled in pass coverage a little bit, but in run support, he's really solid. So I think the pass coverage thing is just a young player getting used to the speed of the game and really kind of getting acclimated to the complexity of some of the NFL coverages as opposed to what he did in college, even though he was at Alabama. Then they have the foundation of that linebacking core, which is Aziz Al-Shaair, but who they brought in to really be kind of the stabilizing force of that group. But without Christian Harris, don't know how long he's going to be out. I haven't really dove into it yet, but I will say they have been experimenting with different sub packages in the preseason. The preseason is one thing, and the regular season is another. But they've been experimenting. Remember, I told you they've been experimenting with a 3 safety package. We saw that a few times in the preseason, and that could be something to supplement the whatever the losses and the depth issues at linebacker. They threw out a few plays with three safeties with Jalen Petrie in the nickel, and Eric Murray was the third safety, and Kalen Bullock was the third safety on a few of those plays. Jalen Petrie being back at the nickel, by the way, helps because he can take on some linebacker duties, even though he's not a linebacker per se, but he actually can fulfill some of the same duties in the role of a linebacker. They also had, and this is something that I think which some they've talked about in practice, that there's another dime sub package they're using, but essentially it's like four safeties in this dime package that they've experimented with in practice. It says here from it says the Texans essentially it says here the Texans have experimented with four safeties, secondary blanket, everything, which is against the Rams, everything with four safeties on the field. Yeah. So now maybe they're using one of those safeties as a kind of a linebacker, basically, and it is still the three safety package, but with an extra linebacker. But still, they're doing some funky stuff sub package wise, and maybe that's because they knew about the injury to Christian Harris and that he wasn't going to be available early, and that they would have to get creative to try to fill in that gap at the linebacker spot. So I bet we hear later on the Texans went after, or at least called about, Ernest Jones, especially now considering the Christian Harris situation that we were unaware of. But I also believe some of the four safety dime package experiments that we've heard about as well from the Texans in the offseason may be due to the Christian Harris injuries too.
Yeah. And I mean, apparently that Christian Harris injury is just a calf injury that is not healed up correctly. And I think they just want to make sure he's healthy for the rest of the season. So let him actually shut it down for a little bit, as opposed to trying to push it each and every week and just be like, are you ready this week? Are you ready this week? You should just say, okay, now we know it's at least 4 weeks, so you can shut it down for 3. And then we'll start looking at it again and see if you're feeling better then, which makes sense. You have that stretch. We've talked about the stretch at the end of the season where you're playing all those games in a row. You got to try and keep your guys healthy through it. I mean, Sark has talked over and over again about calling NFL coaches, trying to figure out how to keep your players healthy through a long season. So with the new rules that came in during COVID, where you could put guys on the IR for 4 games, and you don't have to have season ending. We see it way, way more than we used to see it. And so it still kind of has that negative connotation of injury reserve is season ending. But for a lot of these guys, it's just, it's a way to shut them down for a few weeks, let some other guys get some work in, and then, you bring them back and they're healthy and they can come in and make a difference. They're still expecting a lot out of Christian Harris this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. But even with Christian Harris, and I didn't even know about the injury when I brought up the Ernest Jones one, I still thought they potentially could be looking to upgrade the linebacking core, which is something I've always talked about. Hey, we're always looking to upgrade at any position.
But my guess would be that they thought the salary was going to be a bit much, because the compensation clearly wasn't. The compensation was a 5th, and they got a 6 back. It was a pick swap for a 5th and a 6.
Which was also kind of funky. Like, everybody's like, man, something's going on there.
So he must have asked for a lot of money.
I don't know what he asked for. Yeah, I know the Titans end up making that trade. And the Titans are a better defense for the Titans. I like the Titans defense and what they're doing.
Yeah, they've made a lot of moves. If that all comes together, that's annoying as a Texans fan.
No, I honestly, I think what they're doing, a lot of it is because of the Texans. I think they're gearing up to try to combat this high-powered, potentially prolific offense for the Texans that they're building. Because everything that the Titans are doing is very unique. Like they're building it with unique beasts basically at every level of the defense. Tavondre Sweat's on the defensive line. He's the biggest deep tackle in the league. Now they had Kenneth Murray and Ernest Jones at the linebacker. Kenneth Murray is essentially kind of a hybrid linebacker that can run. Came in as one of those linebackers that can run sideline to sideline guy. They got the best bump and run corner in the league in L'Jarius Sneed. Just made the move for him and got him via free agency in the offseason. Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams are their safeties. So Quandre Diggs can play any position in secondary, so that is about as multiple as you can get. And Jamal Adams, another hybrid who you can basically move down to play a linebacker if you need him to. And Quandre Diggs plays more center field than any other safety in the league, or at least he has in the last few years. So you can move Jamal Adams down a linebacker depth, essentially turn that whatever could be a nickel package into a 40 personnel package with from two linebackers, and Jamal Adams becomes your third with Kenneth Murray, Ernest Jones, and Jamal Adams as your linebackers, and then your corners are Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, and then then Quandre Diggs as one of your safeties. And you know what I mean? Like, you can, there's so many different freaky things you could do in those packages, and they have like like I said, very uniquely gifted athletes for, like I said, for extreme freaky purposes. Like I said, whether that's the biggest D tackle in the league, best bump and run corner, hybrid athletes in the secondary. Denard Wilson, they're up to something. I don't know if it's going to work, but it is. I can see what the vision is, and I like the vision. I like the vision for the Titans. And we'll see how it matches up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have a high-powered offense, matches up against the Colts, who have a really with Anthony Richardson, if he stays healthy, they have a really difficult offense to stop too, because they have a lot of weapons. And then the Texans offense. I mean, the offense they're going up against, they don't have a high-powered offense, so they could try to, get into the arms race that is the AFC South right now, or they can go, "Now we got to go against the grain, guys. We can't. We're not going to win the arms race. We don't have the quarterbacks they got. They got Trevor Lawrence, the number one overall pick. They got C.J. Stroud, who's considered the prince that was promised. Now he's going to be the next best young quarterback that's up and coming. And Anthony Richardson is one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks we've ever seen at the position in the NFL. We don't have that. We got none of that. So I think their response is, all right, let's try to get the most unique defense that we can get together that can combat and counter all of this offensive arms race happening in our ecosystem right now. And who knows? It may work. They're the ones who are loading up on defense. Nobody else is kind of loading up on defense as much. The Texans have made some moves on defense too, but I don't know if they've made the moves that have kind of revamped the whole defense as much as Tennessee has in that division. All right. Let's get to some Longhorns who are also being, like right now, a lot of Longhorns who are, and the entire class, by the way, the draft class, I believe they all made 53-man rosters. None of those guys cut, but we'll get into some of the Longhorns who were cut and try to get you updated with as many of the Longhorns who are on rosters as we can when we go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment. We'll also dive into Texas, Colorado State as well, and do some of the rabbit holing, if you will, about that matchup, and talk about that Colorado State defense a little bit. Haven't gotten into their defense, talked a lot about their offense. We'll dive into the defensive side of the ball a little bit for Colorado State. All that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. I want to talk about the Longhorns in the NFL who made the 53-man rosters and those who unfortunately did not. Just give you a couple of updates here. We talked about some of these already, but we'll kind of go down a list of players. Deontay Foreman was one of the guys, one of the more notable, recognizable Longhorns who was cut. Remember, he actually suffered a neck injury too in training camp. I think that's a big reason why. He may have a hard time getting picked up by a team or finding a team that's interested. It would only be because of that. Because I was thinking, man, the Cowboys would love Deontay Foreman, a guy like that. But I can see why some teams may have some hesitation there. Colin Johnson was also released. I thought he was gonna have a chance to make that team. He had a really good preseason. Remember, he had that 2-touchdown game.
He did, but apparently he's been dealing with some injuries as well. Expected to be on the practice squad. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a hamstring thing for him. So he did not make the 53-man roster for the Bears. They did keep, I think, 6 receivers, but I think he has a good chance to make the practice squad. Veteran offensive lineman Calvin Anderson and Ryan Watts, they were placed on season-ending injured reserve. I did not realize Ryan Watts was hurt. I know he had a stinger. And I believe that's the last update that I had gotten about his injury in the preseason, that it was a stinger, but they put him on season-ending injured reserve by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Calvin Anderson, too, placed on.
I've seen
that was a little disappointing.
I've seen a few people get put on with stingers on the IR, and I was reading about it a bit more, and now there's more studies coming out that stingers could have real long-lasting damage and be tied to CTE and tied to head injuries, and so there's, I think, a new emphasis on giving people a little bit more time to recover from stingers. And I think it's also a way to, get a guy that you think is good but not quite ready a chance to, basically not practice squad him, not cut him, but keep him on the roster and get another season to work with him.
Yeah, I hope that's the case, because I hope it's not something that is serious. But yes, last update I heard about him. So that's the case for Ryan Watts. 2 players also who are in this Texas draft class, they also are going to be on, at least start on injured reserve, not the season-ending kind, but Christian Jones and Keelan Robinson also are going to start out the season on injured reserve. Keelan Robinson for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Christian Jones for the Arizona Cardinals. But they're on the designated to return at one point during the 2024 season. Charles Omenihu, he's starting the season on the PUP list, physically unable to perform list. Remember, he had that torn ACL in the AFC Championship game, and he missed the Super Bowl and everything like that. So that was an unfortunate story, but he's still working his way back. The Atlanta Falcons waived Josh Thompson with an injury designation. So if he clears waivers, he will return to the Falcons and go on the injured reserve based on the injury, whatever the designation is. The Philadelphia Eagles, remember, they signed recently Caden Stearns. They just released him. And he had a knee injury as well. Most of these things are probably injury related of some kind. So he failed a physical in Carolina. Philadelphia picked him up, and I'm assuming whatever injury that has lingered with him also affected his time there and his evaluation with Philadelphia. Remember Tariq Black? The Steelers released him. Tariq Black, the wide receiver, who played like one season for Texas. The Detroit Lions released Malik Jefferson. He was on injured reserve. He had an injury settlement at one point, but they released him. And I believe that Jordan Whittington made the team. Jalen Ford made the team. Jalen Ford, of course, with the Saints. Jordan Whittington, we've talked about him for weeks, making the Rams. So that's not a surprise to anyone. Sam Ellinger, he made the Colts officially for him. So that's really good news. Moro Ojomo with the Eagles. He makes their 53-man roster. We talked about DeMarvion Overshown and Chris Boyd. DeMarvion Overshown with the Cowboys, Chris Boyd with the Texans. So good news for those guys. And I believe Andrew Beck, we talked about him being cut from the Texans. That was another player. And I'm trying to think if we missed anybody.
Did we get Lil Jordan Humphreys in there?
Lil Jordan Humphreys was cut, yeah.
He was cut, but I believe he's supposed to be practice squad. And the reports are they really like him, but they have too many wide receivers right now. They're trying to trade some play. They're trying to make some different moves. So they were saying he may still play some this season. But he's basically was caught up in the fact that he's on the back end of that depth chart right now, but they're trying to figure out that wide receiver position. They think they have a lot of young guys, but you'll find out as the season goes on. But he's expected to stay with the Broncos as long as no one else claims him.
Yeah, Sean Payton likes him, and Sean Payton likes guys like Lil Jordan Humphrey,
Yeah.
guys with multiplicity in their skill set, guys you can move around, you can play wide receiver, flex, tight end, different things for you. He likes players like that, so I'm glad Lil Jordan Humphrey is with a coach that'll appreciate him. I think that's about it. If I missed anybody, let me know, guys. Hit us up on the text line 512-447-3776. But I believe that's it for the most part. You'll have a lot of Longhorn, and of course, guys like Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, first round picks, guys like that, Byron Murphy, guys who were never there was never concern they were going to be cut. Of course, they make it. This is basically about the guys who were, could or would have been in certain situations would have been on the cutting block for the 53-man roster. There are certain guys who don't have to worry about that, and those are guys like Byron Murphy, Xavier Worthy, Bijan Robinson. We talked about Rojo yesterday. Not surprised. Rojo is with the Bears. The Bears are keeping 5 running backs. We talked about that. So I think for the most part we talked about Tavondre Sweat because of the unique defense that the Titans are building. I believe we addressed most of the Longhorns who made the team. So congrats to all those guys. And for the guys who didn't make the squads, hopefully something opens up for them. Or, hey, man, the beauty of it these days, you got other leagues in the continental United States.
Yeah.
I had to go play in Canada to go play football again. So at least you got the XFL, they got all types of other leagues popping up. These guys have a chance to at least cultivate their craft and keep playing. And they expand the practice squad. You can be on the practice squad longer. So they still got a chance, man. Keep the dream alive. But that dreaded cut down day, which I've experienced, trust me, several times, it's very similar with every team. It's a very similar type of ritual, a depressing one, where everybody knows it's cut down day. Everybody knows like that 24 hours, everybody's got to be at the facility. And essentially guys like Rod B, the Jags out there, we're not hiding, but man, we're trying to be as discreet as possible. We do not want to be found. You not want that's the day you don't want coaches and player personnel guys coming up to you for personal conversations. You don't want it. You just want people to leave you alone. You want to go in the weight room and go lift your weights. You want to go in the cafeteria, eat. You want to go whatever you're doing. You don't want any coach or any executive coming up to you on that day. Because they do, it's usually bad. And they scare the hell out of you. Because on days when I didn't get cut on cut down days a few times, I was always scared that when a coach or an executive came up to me on that day, hey, Rado, what's going on? I'm like, what's going on? What's going on with you? Because that's how they get you. They come up to you, hey, how you doing? I'm like, I'm doing good. You know what, coach needs to see you. Would you go bring your playbook with you and your key card? Bring both of those, and coach will talk to you. It's like, we all know what's happening here. You can just tell me here. I don't have to go talk to coach, but you always got to go the whole same ritual. Somebody comes to get you, bring your playbook. I'm sure now it's on some type of tablet. So you probably just get, they probably just shut down your access to it. But I would bring the playbook. And you got to bring your key card and you got to go talk to coach. And nobody wants to tell you that you're being cut or you're being transitioned to practice squad, but that's happening. And very, very, I think it's very seldom that you get a chance to go into the coach's office in the NFL. Usually it's never for a good thing when you're in the coach's office in the league, like the head coach's office, never really a good thing. I've never been in there for a good reason. It's always to be cut. I was always the head coach never brought me in there. I was like, hey, Rob, what's going on, man? So want to check on you, see how things are going. You look good out there. So I want to let you know your footwork's looking great. Love the work ethic. Hey, just want to give you some words of encouragement. And then let me on my way. No, never happened. Every time I go with that coach, it's really nice. And they sit you down. And it's usually their version of it's not you, it's me. When you break it up with somebody, that's basically the spiel they give you. And it's the same thing. It's a numbers game. It's always a numbers game. It's a numbers game, and that's why we had to cut you. We like it, all right? And a lot of coaches right here fought for you, but the numbers right now, we only keeping a certain amount, and you're right outside that number. We keeping 6, and you number 7.
Yeah,
that's the spiel, and it's always like, don't let this discourage you. Keep your dreams alive, and this is always I think at the end they keep you from having a total breakdown. We may call you back. We may call you back, practice squad. We may need you actually, because we like you. So hey, answer the call. Wait, make sure. Hey, Hey, keep hope alive. Keep hope alive now. We like you. And it's always so they just as you're going out, they want to make sure they encourage you. It is like when you break up with somebody, you don't want them to have a meltdown. So hey, now it's not you, it's me. And then you encourage them. Oh man, you can do a whole lot better than me. You can do so much better than me. You actually, I gotta say, I don't even know why you're dating me. All right, you're way out of my damn league. All right, just so you know what we could get back together right now. Let's just take a break. It's that kind of thing, and they just want to ease you into that that breakup and that cut. And they do, and they still bring you. My day, they were bringing you a trash bag to put your stuff in. I don't know what they bring you now. Maybe they're a little bit more classy than they used to be, but I got a trash bag at most of the locations I was at to get my stuff and get the hell out. So that's usually how it went down for cut down day for me. And I imagine for most guys, it was the same thing. It's a sad state of affairs. Yeah. All right. So we'll get to some more Longhorn football news. I want to get to some Texas, Colorado State right now. We'll get to some of the Longhorns in the NFL discussion because there are a couple of other Longhorns in the league. Xavier Worthy. I got a couple of topics that I want to get into related to Xavier Worthy. It's more of a fantasy football conversation, but there's some things that the fantasy world has noticed about his preseason performance and productivity. So we'll dive into that later, but let's talk Texas, Colorado State, the defensive side for Colorado State. We've talked about the offense, and I will get back into that. I think that's the most compelling matchup between Texas and Colorado State, but their defense, I think I've said this before, their back seven, their secondary, I actually think they have some good players. Their safeties are the ones that I don't know if they worry me, but I do think they could cause some problems for Texas. Jack Howell and Henry Blackburn, they're two safeties. And the reason I say they could cause some problems is because veteran safeties, which both of these guys are, they got a lot of starts between them. And Jack Howell's a team captain. He was the leading tackler last year, 114 tackles. He's a stud. Dad actually played at Colorado State. His dad was a starter there for 3 years. So he's a legacy. So it means a lot to him, right? He's a guy that's playing with purpose because he got a lot of pride in Colorado State, probably somewhere he's always wanted to be. And Henry Blackburn, 17 starts between him. Both of those guys are veterans in that secondary. And then they have two corners. Dom Jones, I think, is a decent player. He's got some size, by the way. He's 6'3" cornerback out of Colorado State, 15 starts under his belt. And then the other cornerback, Elias Larry, has 12 starts. Most of the defense is inexperienced, but not in the secondary. And Henry Blackburn tied for the team lead in receptions last year. Jack Howell really active in the run game, really active overall. I mean, when you watch the film, he's everywhere. He's all over the place. And those are the guys you want to watch. Blackburn's number 11, Jack Howell's number 17. And Chase Wilson is the other, I think, impact player for them. He's had 107 tackles last year, 3 PBUs, 3.5 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss. He's another guy, number 30. That's a playmaker. He may be a little undersized. He's about 6'1", 225, 230. So maybe a little undersized, but really active. And really, I think just has a great nose for the football overall as a player. So those are the 3 players watching film that just kind of jump out to you. And even when you look at the scheme, I think when you look at those 3 guys, you got a linebacker and you got your 2 safeties. Because they're veterans, because they got high football IQ, those are the guys you can play chess with in terms of being able to disguise some things, being able to manipulate your front or manipulate your coverage, different pre-snap and post-snap looks. You can do it with those 3 guys because they're in the central nervous system of your defense. Essentially, the quarterback's watching. A lot of his reads initially are going to come off of those guys. What are those 2 safeties doing? What's that off-ball linebacker doing? That inside linebacker, which is Chase Wilson. So if that defensive coordinator is savvy enough when Quinn Ewers is making his pre-snap reads, in which, by the way, he'll be able to at least hear Sark in that headset communication, with some of his pre-snap diagnosis, and that will help. But I guarantee those guys are planning on manipulating a lot of the pre-snap looks, and they're planning on doing a lot of disguise with those 3 guys. And if they can do that, you can really distort the numbers advantage in the box which is what the RPO is based on. All right, the run pass option. Do I have the numbers advantage in the box? If I do, I hand it off. If I don't, then I'm throwing it because I got the numbers advantage on the outside in the one-on-one with the tag. And so they can throw that off. They can start a guy off in the box, and you think you don't have the numbers advantage. They have more guys than your guy, and then you throw it, and they could drop that safety back into the zone or drop him back into the area with the glance and the tag. They can do the same thing with Chase Wilson. Oklahoma did a lot of this early on with Quinn Ewers, and that's why we saw him throw some picks. They could do some of those things. Now, I don't know how sophisticated their defensive coordinator is going to get, but why wouldn't you if you're Colorado State? What do you have to lose? Otherwise, Texas is going to march the football down the field on you anyway because they have better talent and they got a brilliant offensive mind and a high level quarterback and a big, they have an offensive line that's going to lean on you and they have more speed than you can defend. So you can wait around and try to play it safe, or you can take some chances. And I think Colorado State's going to take some chances early on. It's a big game for them. Jay Norvell's coming back to DKR. I think he wants to early on while he's got a shot, because I don't think he'll have a shot in the second and third quarters. His best shot to shell shock Texas in the first. And I think on defense, your best move is going to be trying to confuse Quinn early on with some of the RPO reads. He shouldn't get confused because he's a veteran quarterback, but you can still do that. And then I think on the defense, if you're going to try to bring pressure, or if you're going to try to put together pressure packages, a lot of movement and twists and stunts up front for the defensive front and try to confuse the blocking scheme, specifically on the right side for Texas, where they do have a little bit of inexperience. Everywhere else they have so much experience. I doubt the twists and stunts and the pressure packages from Colorado State are going to be that effective, but maybe on the right-hand side. So that's some of the things I think that they can try to do, but I think Colorado State, for the most part, they're going to be victimized by pretty much the Texas size on the offensive line and their mass on the offensive line. They just can't. I don't think they can measure up to it. So I think that's where Texas will have the initial advantage. So we may not even get to see Texas have to throw the football very much against Colorado State early on, because I think they'll be able to just mash and playing bully ball. All right, come back. We'll get into the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and we'll also get into the musically themed day of the week right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn.
Back on the Rodcast here on a Wednesday. That means it's a one artist Wednesday, playing you music from one artist all show long. And today it's Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson's birthday is tomorrow, or would be tomorrow. So we'll play some MJ. It's another one that had too many bangers. So we're going one an album to go through this, because that's the only way to kind of fairly do it, or else it'll just be like all one album and I'll get criticized. So I'm going to just do one an album. So,
That's fair.
so
Yeah,
one an
I can
album for
believe
Michael
that.
Jackson,
I
but
like that.
Michael Jackson Day, because it'll be his birthday. It would have been his birthday tomorrow. So we'll be playing Michael Jackson all show long. Let's get into the big fat poll today. Text line is open 512-447-3776, and we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, this one's going to be hard to do on X because there's going to be too many options. So you guys can go ahead and comment on the text line. You can go ahead and comment on the thread on X as well. But the question of the day, who will score the first touchdown for Texas this season? Who gets into the end zone first for Texas? Who do you have getting in first? And we know if you're going to try and get the easy out, we'll just state off the record. Quinn Ewers, it's who walks through it's who crosses the goal line. So you cannot say a Quinn Ewers pass and get the easy answer.
Yeah, it'll likely be. I think Jaden Blue probably gets.
So I think Jaden Blue, he's the first one I had on there. I also put on there Isaiah Bond, Silas Bolden, and Jonte Cook is who I'll put up on the X poll. Because I fear those are your main guys you would think. Silas Bolden is the fun answer because we just have heard so much about him. It could be Matthew Golden, but I don't know how much he'll be used in the red zone versus being used in other places. We'll see as the season goes on. But that's the question. So who will score the first touchdown for Texas this season? You would assume it's Jaden Blue. It seems like the best odds would be on Jaden Blue, but you could also say they're going to throw the ball a lot, and so it could go there. I mean, I didn't even put on tight ends. It could be a tight end, Juan Davis, Gunnar Helm, Amari Niblack. One of those guys could be on there. It could be Matthew Golden. It could be Ryan Wingo could get in there and get a touchdown early. It could be a lot of different guys who get in there. Trey Wisner could get some carries early in the game if he comes in and gets the touchdown. So many different options. But I'm just curious who you guys think. If you were putting the money on it, who would you say will score the first touchdown for Texas this season?
Jaden Blue. My money's on Jaden Blue. Yeah. And it'll be kind of like in the red zone, but not like near the goal line. It'll be like on the verge of the red zone. The high red, I think it's sort of.
Okay, well, look, okay, do you go between the tackles or outside of the tackles on that touchdown?
That's a good question. It might be inside the tackles, actually. I just think Texas is gonna. I think early on it's probably gonna be able to maul Colorado State. The more I look at it, more I look at that defensive front. I just think Texas is gonna have such a huge advantage running the football, even though they lost their starting running back. I mean, their defensive end is starting defensive end. They got one that's 250. They got another starting defensive end that's 245, and neither one of them have a start under their belt. Zero. They got 36 starts total. Like just the front. If you look at the front six, the top, just their front overall linebackers and D line, 36 starts. There are 3 guys with 0 starts, and 2 of them are defensive ends. Yeah. So maybe maybe it'll be on the edge. Yeah, maybe it'll be. Maybe that's where, because the experience actually is in the interior. They got the 2 D tackles with about 24 starts between them. So there you go. On the edge, Texas gets it. It's Jaden Blue. So I think they can start mauling them early on in the run game. And Texas wants to get their running backs their work early and get them the hell out the game. And they want to get them out. I guarantee they want to get Jaden Blue in that and Trey Wisner out of that game, but they want to get them work, and they want that running game to be confident going to the Michigan game. I think that's what they do. They pound the rock early. That's where they have the huge advantage. You don't want to be just throwing into that second. I just told you that secondary's got 81 starts between those 5 guys. You rather go against a front 6 with 36 starts and 3 guys with 0 starts and 2 defensive ends that's 250 and lower against your big humans, or throw it into a secondary with a team captain, 2 all-conference safeties with 81 starts between them in the secondary. Which one you want to attack?
I mean, I know what I would attack, but I also know Sark maybe sometimes likes to throw the football.
He does like to throw the football. I know, and trust me, I agree with him. And I said this year he should lean into the pass, but also I look at matchups and love me some matchups. And this matchup says Texas has got a big advantage with their big humans up front, and so we'll see. I think they want to be confident running the rock, so I think first touchdown is a rushing touchdown.
All right, I like that. Let us know what you think. Text lines open 512-447-3776. We'll get this posted up on X as well at the Horn ATX. Who will score the first touchdown for Texas this season?
All right. I like that. Good discussion. I think I'm going to go with Jaden Blue on that one, but we'll see. It could easily, hopefully it doesn't matter. As long as they score a touchdown in the red zone, we're good. As long as we don't deal with some of the issues we dealt with last year, where they couldn't score touchdowns in the red zone. I'll take it however I can get it. All right, good stuff. We'll come back. We'll dive into more of the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. There are some NFL news, notes, and nuggets out there. The NFL was hoping to have this technological advancement ready for the season. It's not going to be ready for the season, and I'll tell you why the NFL is slow playing this move. We'll also talk about what Trent Williams means for the 49ers. They got a couple of lockouts, a couple of right now holdouts, I should say, happening right there. And Xavier Worthy ran 19 preseason routes. I'll give you a trend about the percentage of some of those routes that actually is a bit eye-popping. We'll dive into that and more when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a One Artist Wednesday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick goes deep down the rabbit hole of one specific artist, band, or group, and the entire show is dedicated to that artist, band, or group. And today it is Michael Jackson who is featured on One Artist Wednesday, and Patrick is taking one jam from all the many iconic albums that Michael Jackson had because he can't play all the bangers. It's just impossible. And he's going to have those as part of One Artist Wednesday. So we appreciate him hooking us up there. Also, we appreciate him hooking us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. It's a simple one, still talking about Texas football here. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day. Who will score the first touchdown for Texas this season? We gave you on the poll on X, Jaden Blue, Isaiah Bond, Silas Bolden, and Jonte Cook. If you want to write in another one, feel free to write in another one. And I see all of you on the text line saying, what about the defense? I'm not putting my money on saying if I'm going to pick who I think would score the first touchdown, the random act of one of them getting an interception or a fumble recovery for a touchdown before the Texas offense scores.
I will say Nicolosi he did throw 16 interceptions last year, which was a lot of interceptions. So if there is a quarterback that is likely to throw you a pick six, it would be Braden Fowler, Nicolosi, if based off last year. But I would say, yeah, I agree with you. Defensive guy, even if they get a pick, what's the chance of him getting a pick six?
What if they get the
if
ball?
They do fumble, get a fumble recovery. What's the chances of a fumble recovery for a touchdown? I will say that if you want to go special teams, if you want to give me Matthew Golden or Silas Bolden, I'll take that bet because Matthew Golden last season at U of H, I mean, he was one of the best kickoff returners in the country. He only had 9 kickoff returns, but 2 of them returned for touchdowns and averaged damn near 36 yards per kickoff return. And you want to tell me Silas Bolden also could end up scoring when I think he's going to be the starting punt returner. I would take that bet because last year, and he didn't have many opportunities either. Last year in punt returns, he only had 3 of them, but returned 1 of them for touchdowns and averaged damn near 33 yards per punt return. That's a bet I'll take, but not the defensive one. I agree. It's a long shot.
That's a long shot. I mean, you have to say you're expecting Texas to score on their first drive. You're hoping Texas scores on their first drive. So I mean that Texas would have to get a defensive touchdown before Texas offense touched the ball.
Yeah, I don't see it happen, but that'd be awesome. That'd be amazing. Can you imagine how crazy DKR would be if the first touchdown is a defensive touchdown of some kind, a non-offensive touchdown of any kind as your first touchdown? It would be pretty damn thrilling. Yeah, like I said, special teams one would be good too, but I do think it's the special teams one that actually has a good chance of happening, or at least maybe a better chance of happening. But you got dynamic returners, like 2 of the best in the country at punt return and kickoff return with Silas Bolden and Matthew Golden. So, and I know that Jeff Banks is going to have he's going to have a plethora of ways to weaponize those guys in the return game. There ain't no doubt about that. All right, there you go. So that's the topic for the big fat poll today. I picked Jaden Blue right now. That's who's leading the poll. Still early on. That's who's leading the poll right now. 67% of you saying Jaden Blue. Yeah, because Jaden Blue, he could get it by breaking a big one early. Or when they get closer and closer to the red zone, they want to establish the run. They want to get into the RPO game. It's going to be Jaden Blue. They're going to get Jaden Blue and Trey Weissner their work because those guys ain't going to be around for long. They don't get them in and out. You cannot take a chance, knock on wood, of something happening to another running back, them getting dinged up. So I put money on those guys getting the work in early and then, those guys being done as soon as Texas can pull away or establish a comfortable lead against Colorado State. All right, there you go. So that's the topic for the big fat poll today. All right, we'll get back into Texas versus Colorado State. We'll continue to preview that matchup because Longhorn fans are really excited about the start of the season. I think a lot of people are, expecting Texas to blow out Colorado State and make quick work of them. I am too, but I do think the first quarter is probably, what you want to watch in terms of what Jay Norvell throws at Texas. For Jay Norvell and Colorado State, this is their big game. Think about it, what Michigan is for Texas and kind of what the Georgia game is for Texas. Sark has been doing, off-season prep for those matchups. They're just too big. That's probably 4 matchups on the schedule where Sark is an off-season prep for. It's Michigan, it's Oklahoma, A&M, and Georgia. And those are probably the top 4. And I think that happens to all coaches. You look at the schedule, you pick out your top games, and you can't help it. You're doing a little, off-season prep for those games. They're just, that's just the way it goes, I think, for coaches at every level. And I bet for Sark, he hasn't done any much off-season prep for Colorado State. I'm sure there's been some, but that time has been devoted to the big games when you have time. Now, during the season, you ain't got time. Every week is pretty much devoted to gameplay. Every now and then, coaches will sneak in some concepts that you're going to use. Like I remember us practicing certain coverages and certain concepts and blitz packages that we didn't use the week of that we practiced in certain games. It's mostly a non-conference, and then we bring it back for like the Texas OU game and thought, oh, okay, so they just wanted to get some reps in with that specific coverage, and they wanted us to rep it in practice, get used to it, but never saw it in the game until a big game. So that's some coaches, they'll kind of hide some of their future game plans in weekly practice reps. They'll throw it in there. And I think that happens too, but you don't have the time during the season to do expansive rabbit hole research and prep for an opponent. That's for the off season. You can spend like weeks just going into one opponent and one specific philosophy. And I guarantee you Sark has done that for the big games. Well, Jay Norvell's done that for this game. And I don't know if he got the talent to, execute all of the brainstorming and all the ideas and concepts that he comes up with, but he's going to come up with something. I guarantee he's got something up his sleeve. I would expect trick play early, double pass. Double passes work really well against Texas because Texas is a really aggressive defense and they're fast flowing to the defense. They're fast flow to the football. So with fast flow defenses, you want to get them all that speed going one way and then obviously sleight of hand and get the play going the other way. A lot of misdirection. And I think that's for them. I think that would be a great misdirection play. Remember, UTSA did that against Texas a couple years ago. It's one of those plays that could have success against Texas. I don't know if I've seen it for Colorado State, but they'll have something funky, some trick play up their sleeve against Texas. And misdirection is the best. It is the best kind of antidote for the speed that Texas brings to the table. And like I said, I think they're going to throw it deep. Even though they don't throw it deep, you got to break tendency in big games. That's a way for them to break tendency. And I don't think Texas has seen Torrey Horton, their star receiver, move around as much as he's going to move around in this game coming up versus Colorado State. I think that's another way they're going to break tendency against Texas. So they'll have something up there. And I think they're going to, throw it deep just because Texas has been a vulnerable, susceptible to the deep ball the last couple of years. And I think they're going to force Texas to have to tackle in space and tackle their elite wide receiver prospect in space. And that, I'm sure, is what Jay Norvell's been trying to scheme the last couple of months in the offseason. When everybody in the stadium knows that my best player, Torrey Horton, is going to get the football, how do I scheme him open? How do I manufacture him touches? How can I manipulate the system to force feed him the football when everybody knows it's happening? That's what he's going to have to do against Texas, and that's, I'm sure, what he's been working on, creative, innovative ways to do it. But I've said before, if I'm PK, take that dude away. Take Horton away. Don't try to play it straight up. Don't say, hey, man, my guy's better than your guy. I'll put my guy. And I'm sure Texas has guys that can match up against Horton. I'm not saying they don't. But you don't have to go out there and you don't have to prove that if you're Texas. You have better athletes, but you also schematically have the advantage because they don't have a lot of proven commodities on offense. The one they have, take him away. Force them to beat you with anybody else and see if they can do it, because I don't think they have anybody else that can beat you. He's the only dude that can do it. So take him out of the equation early and often. Bump and run coverage on him. And when he's out wide, put a safety over the top of him. When he's in a slot, bracket him. Put two guys on him. Go one-on-one with everybody else, because you definitely can win the one-on-ones with everybody. He's a one guy that may be able to beat you one-on-one. With everybody else, you can win those one-on-ones all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. So that's what you manufacture. That's what I would do if I was PK. And you'd make quick work of that passing game because Braden Fowler Nicolosi doesn't have a lot of other proven weapons, difference makers to go to. He's the guy. All right. So that's some Texas Colorado State talk. Let's get to the horn headlines, and then we'll come back and dive into some NFL discussion. We'll get into this technological advancement the NFL was hoping they could unveil this year, but not going to happen. We'll talk about that, and we'll also get into some of the other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. I got a Xavier Worthy stat that's a bit telling about how the Chiefs want to use Xavier Worthy. We'll dive into that too. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped another game to the Phillies last night, getting blanked 6-0. Verlander threw 90 pitches in his second game back from injury, but only made it through 5 innings, giving up 4 runs. The Astros will try to salvage a game against Philadelphia tonight with Spencer Arrighetti getting the start. And the Rangers have to wait another day to begin their series with the White Sox, as last night's game was suspended after 4 pitches due to rain. The Rangers will now play a doubleheader today with Andrew Haney still expected to make the start for the Rangers in Game 1, followed by a Jack Leiter taking the mound in his 3rd call-up to the majors this season. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Appreciate those. All right. We'll get to Rod's rant. We'll probably have to push that to the other side if we don't have time for it. We'll get to Rod's rant today. And also, we'll throw that Xavier Worthy stat because it's a Longhorn related rant. So we'll throw that in there too and talk about something that is, I expect to have a resurgence on the 40 acres this upcoming football season. We'll talk about that. Quinn Ewers will be a big part of that conversation. But the NFL was hoping this upcoming season to unveil the kind of a new technological advancement. They were hoping to get rid of the chain gang. They were hoping that they would go to an automated system to determine first downs that would have some kind of radar technology. That would allow them, basically in like laser technology that would allow them to go to an electronic automated system to measure first downs as opposed to the chain gang, which they use. That's not going to happen. The NFL will not utilize its electronic system to measure first downs during the 2024 regular season. The league continued to test the system during the preseason, and there were a few games where they tested it out, and they had left open the possibility of using it during the regular season at some point during the regular season, not for every game, of course. Instead, the system will go into regular season use in 2025 at the earliest, and the sticks and chains system for measuring first downs is not being retired, not yet. The 10-yard chains will remain the primary means for determining first downs this season. They also are expected to remain on the sidelines even during whenever they get the electronic system, when it becomes the new law of the land, if you will. They're still going to have the chain gang there. That'll be the backup system for measuring first downs. And I think one of the ways is because the NFL is also trying to figure out, and this also was a report about it from the Awful Announcing is where I got the article. It said this is from someone who observed it during the preseason. They said the system is nowhere near ready. It was used 3 times in our 3 preseason games, and it took double the time it would take the chain gang. And everyone awkwardly stood around waiting for the referee to announce whether or not it was a first down. So it's, and I said, I don't know exactly how the technology works, the immediacy of it, how quickly they can translate and transfer the information for the refs to announce it. But one thing the chain gang always did for the NFL, and the NFL loved this, and I imagine they're trying to manufacture it and replicate it in some way with the new automated system, is the drama of the chain gang. Like, it's a very dramatic moment. NFL loved the drama of the dudes walking out with the chains and the ball, and then them stretching it out. And you know they do it too. They stretch it out, and then they dramatically lower it down. Oh, as the crowd goes, and they react to it. And then the referee, he demonstratively signals first down or signals that it's short. He gives you how much it's short by. It's short by this much, guys, by that much. You see, and that's a dramatic moment. And you don't think about the NFL's a TV show. They're thinking about all this kind of stuff like, oh, that was a great moment, guys. Guys in the booth and in the trucks, they're like, yeah, we got to make it's a dramatic moment. Let's make sure we capture it. And the NFL with the automated system, I think they're trying to figure out. That's why this report from Matt Money Smith saying that they used it 3 times in 3 preseason games to double the time it would take the chain gang, and everyone awkwardly stood around waiting for the referee to announce whether or not it was a first down. The automated system is supposed to work quicker. It's supposed to work quicker, and it's modern technology. I think it's the NFL trying to figure out how to add a little drama to it, even though it's modern technology. The chain gang was natural. It had natural drama. They literally trot out with the chain, and then they stick the first down marker at the initial right at the initial line of scrimmage, and then they stretch it all the way out to the ball, and then they put it down. And there's just this naturally dramatic feel to it. And you don't have that with the automated system. You got to kind of manufacture it somehow. And they're trying to do that too. And they're realizing like, nah, it's too matter of fact. It's the system will tell you immediately, hey, this is it. There's no drama to it. And I wonder if part of the NFL is now we got to try to manufacture some drama with this new technology. And I don't know how they're going to do it. So that's why I think that part of it is they want to keep the chain gang, at least for now, till they work out some of the kinks.
Well, I mean, because if you're thinking about it, just the chain gang, you're missing the point of what we all want, which is the spot to be correct.
Yes,
because it's not about the chains, and then it's about the ref that spots the ball half a yard off of where we all thought the spot was, and so that's where the drama actually need to put it. But that's if you ever watch tennis, and someone will challenge a call by the officials, they have the screen and they'll show the ball and then they'll show it hitting and then it even expands because it hits and expands as it does. And it shows exactly where the ball hit on the ground. And everybody goes, ooh. So you just need that of the ball, and they show it going forward, and then they show forward progress being stopped. And then if the ball goes back and they go forward progress is right here, and then you put the first down marker across it, and that adds your drama back in and your recreation of it. And everybody turns to the screen because every NFL stadium has a gigantic screen now.
Gigantic screen.
So you just have that. You have that moment where everybody watches the screen and they go, "Oh, well, where did the ball stop actually?" And you have the sensor, so it actually recreates it to show you exactly where the ball. I think
they haven't gotten there yet. They haven't gotten there yet.
But I think that's the dramatic. That's what you need to get to. And again, tennis has been doing this for 20 years. So there's got to be something. I get it's easier in tennis because there's not 20 guys on the field. So it's a little bit easier because you can set up cameras and the ball's normally hitting where you're not blocked off and you have lasers and stuff. So it makes it a little bit easier than NFL. I get that. But at the same concept, that's what I think you need to aim for the drama, because then you still kind of get that moment, except without that human error part where everyone then after the fact goes, well, that's wrong. Like, it doesn't matter. The whole sticks thing doesn't matter because he spotted the ball wrong.
Initially.
And the guy, so the fact that they come running out, you're like, it doesn't matter. He spotted the ball a half yard off of where it's supposed to be. Like, he just picked the ball up and moved it back a foot. And you're like, why would you move it back?
Like, it was right. I don't disagree with that. Now, you're right. And the accuracy is something that, yes, that should be the added benefit and the focus. But for the NFL, I'm telling you, that drama is also part of their emphasis here. So I'm with you. They're going to get it right. I don't know how they're going to add the dramatic effect. I like your idea about the tennis thing. That's pretty cool. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think that's one of the things they're working out. Like, how can we make this really dramatic and, like you said, entertaining and palatable to the masses? Because right now, I don't know if they have the kinks worked out with that. So you won't get the automated first down system until at the earliest the 2025 season. Not going to happen in the 2024 season, even though that was the scuttlebutt that it was going to happen. But I like that the NFL is, you got to come to, because I think you're right with betting and everything happening now too. There's just way more focus on officials and their decision making. And there's way too much technology now with, all the different ways you can access NFL properties and NFL games. People are going to catch stuff like that. Your ref who who routinely spots the ball wrong all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And essentially has done, and then they're gonna, whether it's true or not, they're gonna tie that to a conspiracy theory about
Yeah.
a ref and a fixing of a game. Trust me,
And I
we can
get,
stay away from all that. And
yeah,
technology is the best way to do it.
and I get the whole, you want controversy creates talking, and talking creates more interest in your sport or creates more interest in your product. I get all that. I think there'll still be plenty of that. I don't think you need it to be on necessarily the spots. Like, you need to add that part in. I think that's an easier fix. And then you can still say, was that pass interference? You can still say, was that a hold? Like, those still will be involved in them. It's like balls and strikes in baseball,
Mhm.
where they're just like, well, it's going to ruin the game if you take it away. Is it? Is it that I can watch a game without being like, oh, well, we got screwed in that one, and we'll get it back 3 games later? I don't need that.
Yeah, I agree. No, I'm with you. I think we're past that point in sports. Now we have the technology. Why not use it? Now the NFL is smart for it. Why not use the technology?
Yeah.
And then you can improve the overall product. And there are other ways to manufacture the drama. And your sport's good enough. You don't really need to manufacture drama. But the television, I believe the NFL looks at it, their product like a television show. That's why it's done so well, and why it's America's #1 TV show. So I do think they look at every situation, and that's why they changed the kickoff rule, right? They were thinking about it as a TV show, and that's a really boring part of the TV show.
Yeah.
That's a real. You know why they got rid of all the theme songs? Because nobody was watching the intros to the shows. People stopped watching those. So he's like, you know what? Let's just cut them. Now there's no theme songs. They just have like a beat that opens up the show. Done. Sometimes they don't even have that. They just got Seinfeld kind of started. Boom, 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 boom. That's it. We're into it. Now we just get into the show. And now that our kind of really our obsessive OCD kind of generation and our instant gratification generation, we like it because we don't want to have to wait to get anything. We don't have patience is no longer a virtue for us, so we don't want to wait for that. So they cut out the beginning and the really expansive theme songs. You get right to the TV shows, and they cut out the credits because they realized nobody's watching the credits. So now you get the credits with the show. You ever notice that? It's the end of the show. The outro to the show is the credits too.
Yeah.
All right. So essentially it's the same thing in the NFL. Look at the NFL like a TV show. What fat can we cut out of this thing? Because there's fat that people don't want. All right, just like that fat on that steak, you didn't want it, you put it to the side. They're looking at it like, how can we cut the fat here? And one of the fat parts of the NFL content, or at least the product, was the kickoff. People weren't watching the kickoff. It wasn't sexy enough. Now they just improved the kickoff. All right, and I think they're going to look at the same thing when it comes to any part of it, even the measuring of first downs. You can make it accurate, but how can we make it entertaining? We can make it accurate, but how do we make it entertaining? Yeah, we can make it good, but how do we also make it entertaining? They're always going to ask that. Yes, we can do that, but how do we also make it entertaining? It's got to entertain the masses. That's why offense will always get the nod in rule changes most of the time, because offense makes it entertaining. Sorry, defense. I love defense, but it ain't entertaining. Offense is entertaining. People don't like to see like good tackles and sacks and good PBUs. No, they want to see what's sexy. Offense is sexy. So that's what the NFL looks at, and I think that's why I don't know if this is sexy enough yet. I don't know if it's entertaining enough yet. They'll figure it out. You're right. Your idea is great, Patrick. But the NFL, that's why they're king, because they'll always ask that question. It can't just be for the good of the product. It's also got to be for what's palatable and entertaining to the masses.
Yeah, and that's like, they don't do it with instant replay, which is dumb. They don't do the XFL or whatever that other method was of having them talk through it. You go do that. That's way more entertaining to watch the referee sit back and go, okay, well, we're watching his foot here and do that. That's more entertaining than sitting there and just everyone just stands still
staring,
and then the commentators go,
right.
well, this is what I would do. And they all hired people to have people talk through it. And then the person goes, well, I would do this. And then the ref comes out and goes, opposite. There you go. Well, thanks for just wasting my time there, guys.
No, that's actually good drama, though. And I like when the XFL did that.
Yeah.
And you're right. They could have the most, I don't know, the most articulate ref, or the one who's got the best sense of humor, or the one. Yeah. Let him talk people through it. And that is drama. That is, people will listen to it and they can debate about it. I'm with you. I think those are all great ideas, and then the NFL will probably take a couple of those or use them in some way, form, or fashion in their own way. But I think that's what's holding it up. If you want to know kind of what's holding it, and the NFL does this with everything, right? That's why now fans can go to the combine. The combine's a TV show, even though we need the 40-yard dash anymore? Do we really need the 40-yard dash when we have technology, laser time technology, electronic time that will tell us how fast players are running in pads, in games, with the ball in their hands against actual defenders? Do we need somebody to go out there in underwear and run a 40-yard dash? No. We knew Xavier Worthy was the fastest guy in college football based on real analytics. They had a 22.7 miles per hour was what he was clocked at in the game with pads on, helmet on, ball in his hands, running from and away from defenders. So we knew he was the fastest guy. Did we need to see him run a 40? No, but we know what it was. Great television. It was amazing television. He ran the 4.2, he ran like a 4.22, and it was like, man, then you can break the record. Ran back and ran it again. Great drama. That's what the NFL is about. Even their combine now is about the drama of it. That's why they, the green room and everything. The NFL tweaked the green room, and they used to have it where it was too much drama in the green room, where guys were sitting in the green room who were about to be drafted and nobody drafted them, and then they realized that was embarrassing the guys. So it's like, you know what? Now we're going to shrink this. But actually, that was too much drama. We don't want that kind of drama. It's negative drama. We don't want that. Too much drama for your mama. So then they shrunk the green room to try to make it a better television product because they don't want to embarrass the guys. They do want the drama of where this guy's going to get drafted. The NFL is all about the TV show, and it's been a great blueprint so far. So I think they'll fix it. They'll figure out if it ain't broke, fix it anyway. They'll find out some way to fix it. But accuracy, I'm glad they're leaning into the accuracy. Don't be baseball. If you got a chance to do it right, and they're still going to do it. They just don't know how to do it, like I said, in an entertaining way just yet. But I think Patrick's idea is pretty good. I like the tennis idea, and I like you should do both the tennis idea and the talking idea. Do them both. You have some random kind of computer imaging visual of the guys, like, some computer image of them falling where it would be or whatever, and have the ball the different angles that you could get.
Like just think of like a scrum, and they all get in there, and it's in the
like
middle, and you can't see
like
it.
a 3D,
And then it just like peels the guys off, but you can see the ball underneath.
Man, yeah, just like comes up
so
with 3D
entertaining.
simulation of it. No, I'm with you. Like really lean into the technology. I'm with you. That'd be really cool if you can watch them and they kind of disassemble it visually for you, and then see the guy at the bottom of the pile there. And I know they have the ability to do stuff like that. I just don't know how quickly they can turn it around and how they can make it entertaining, but I think they'll figure it out. All right, let's get to the break. We come back. I'll give you this Xavier Worthy stat that kind of blew my mind, actually. And there are some numbers that prove that the 49ers, that without Trent Williams, there's an argument to be made that Trent Williams is the most important non-quarterback to any team, the most important non-quarterback player to any team in the NFL. And if you look at just his importance and value to a team, quarterback, separate discussion. But if you look at non-quarterbacks and what they mean and their impact on a team, you could argue Trent Williams is the best and most valuable non-quarterback in the NFL. We'll talk about that when we come back. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some NFL discussion. There's some NFL news, notes, and nuggets from around the league. A couple of things, and I saw this just looking at some of the preseason trends, getting ready for the upcoming NFL season. The the Chiefs, because the Chiefs, they showed, I think, a lot in the preseason. Like I said, we don't know how much is going to foreshadow about the regular season and what they're going to do. But I've been looking at Xavier Worthy and some of the ways they've been using Xavier Worthy. And I told you, they put him in a slot a lot. Put he's their motion man. A lot of the times when he was in there with Patrick Mahomes, that's also a good sign. There's a ways that Sark weaponized him here at Texas. But how about this stat? So of his 19 preseason routes that he ran, 47%, damn near 50% of them would go routes on the move, like going deep. That to me, I mean, that's a big number. I mean, usually a player's go route percentage is probably hovering around 30%. Now, this could be a good or a bad thing for, I guess, fantasy owners. It could mean that they're going to throw it to him deep a lot, which they threw it to him, I think, on some of those deep routes. But it also can mean that he's going to be their decoy guy, which he also was in the preseason, where he just took defenders with him consistently and just took the top off the defense every time and opened things up for Travis Kelce underneath, for Rashee Rice underneath, and some of the other weapons underneath. So it could be either one of those. I think they want to bring back the verticality to the offense with Xavier Worthy and with Hollywood Brown, but we shall see. But that's a really high number. Just they heads up, like I said, close to 50% of your routes you're running go routes, and nobody better to run them. But I do think whether they throw him the ball in the go routes or whether he's a decoy, that's going to play his role. I think early on they believe he's going to be a decoy. I think it could switch. He could be a decoy early on, and then once teams start to gather enough information and the sample size grows and they understand, okay, the tendency is they don't throw to him on these deep over concepts, on these deep go routes, then maybe teams won't allocate as much or allocate as many resources to defend him over the top. Or maybe they will, because they know how dangerous he is. His reputation precedes him. So teams are going, even in the preseason, there were teams. I mean, he scored on one of those deep throws, and I think from Carson Wentz, and had a couple of passes where he just outran the defense and he was schemed open. But during the regular season, I don't think teams are going to allow that. So I think Andy Reid is banking on the respect they're going to have for Xavier Worthy's speed and that opening up the rest of the offense, which basically has been the case. I mean, the last 2 years, the yards per attempt for Patrick Mahomes and the average yards per touchdown has dropped precipitously. He's at the point now where his average yards per touchdown is lower than 5 yards, yards per touchdown pass, because they just don't throw the football vertically downfield. They don't have to. Still won the Super Bowl with just a short intermediate passing game. Now they're going to add the third layer of the passing game with the deep ball. That's going to take away some defenders, and teams are going to have fewer defenders to defend the same concepts that they won the Super Bowl running last season. Which is shorter, intermediate concepts, is really going to help out Travis Kelce, because it's going to make defending him way tougher, because he doesn't even run routes. I don't know if you ever watched a route tree from Travis Kelce. They're not routes, guys. He's just getting open. I swear, go look at it. They'll just have it at Next Gen Stats, and they'll have like a yellow line representing Travis Kelce's routes. He's not running precision routes at all. There are no angles. There are no hard angles in his routes. There are no 90-degree angles in his routes. He's just out there getting open, playground style. And him and Patrick Mahomes have great chemistry, and he finds them. And so in order to make that even easier for Travis Kelce, to give him even more room, you bring in a guy like Xavier Worthy, he's going to take the top off of defense on every play. And when he doesn't, they're going to make him pay. So I think it's Andy Reid's way of offering a kind of pick your poison scenario for defenses. You can now, if you double Xavier Worthy on those deep passes, man, Travis Kelce's going to eat a lot. He's going to eat all day. I mean, he's just going to pick your defense apart, because nobody can stop that connection between him and Patrick Mahomes, even when they were flooding the short intermediate zones. Now you can't flood those short intermediate areas defensively, because you got to respect the deep ball. But if you don't respect the deep ball and you want to flood the short intermediate, okay, You take your chances on Xavier Worthy running by your safety and or running by your corner in a one-on-one situation, and Patrick Mahomes, who's got one of the strongest arms in the league, throwing it out there where only his guy can get it. And Xavier Worthy, where he can get it is where most human beings can't get it, because he can go where no man's gone before with that kind of speed. So I think that's where they're opening up. So it's not going to be just, and they're going bombs away, vertical shots down the field. That wasn't the case in the preseason, but in terms of Xavier Worthy, he better be in great shape, because he's going to be running deep a lot, over and over and over again. But it'll just be whenever the defense decides that they want to shift their focus from deep to short to intermediate, then they better be ready to pay the price, because you can't defend both. Can't defend Kelsey in that short intermediate area and defend, Xavier Worthy on those deep balls. That's going to be tough to do. And I think the deep ball is coming back to Texas too. We've talked about this with Quinn, and last year, Quinn's last 7 games of the season, he really did improve with his deep ball accuracy. Last 7 starts, he went from a 24% completion rate on deep balls to a 43% completion rate on deep balls. Off target rate went from 44% down to 25%. So he got much better. I think overall completed like 33% of his deep passes. But that number in the last 7 starts, like I said, it was around 43%. I believe if they pick up where they left off last year, now this will be difficult because you don't have the same weapons you had last year. But, your deep ball chemistry with Xavier Worthy wasn't good. I mean, it was actually one of the worst in college football. Strangely enough, even though he was the ideal deep threat because of his speed, he wasn't. Him and Quinn Ewers didn't have deep ball compatibility. The off-target rate for Xavier Worthy was 22.4%. That was the highest of any receiver in that draft class. His 9.2 yards per target on deep passes was the worst of any non-undrafted Power 5 receiver in that 2024 class. You go look at it overall, 94 deep targets in his career, 25.5% completion rate. That's not very high. And I think just because you lose Xavier Worthy, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs want to use him as a vertical threat. They are going to use him as a vertical threat, and I think he can be that. I'm just saying it wasn't necessarily a successful concept throwing the ball deep, and a successful pairing and duo and as a deep ball connection between Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy. So the guys who have here now, whether it's Isaiah Bond or whether it's Silas Bowden, or whether it's Matthew Golden, who knows, it could be a Jonte Cook, could be a Ryan Wingo. Who knows what kind of deep ball chemistry and connection Quinn Ewers is going to develop with those guys. Some people would say, hey, Quinn actually may have had a better deep ball connection with A.D. Mitchell, considering he had just got there last year, than he did with Xavier Worthy, even though they had been working together for 2 and 3 years. And one of the things that it actually may come down to is just the speed on deep balls. One thing Xavier Worthy was really good at is dialing, basically being able to regulate his speed, dialing it down and dialing it up at the right time. I saw this stat about Xavier Worthy that on routes, remember when he was clocked at 22.7 miles per hour, that was actually on a punt return, where Real Analytics clocked his top speed at 22.7 miles per hour. It was the fastest time for any player in college football that season. And of course, that was confirmed at the NFL Combine. But his top speed on route running, he had a top speed of 21.02 miles per hour, which is still pretty damn fast. But his deep route speed was actually 19.9 miles per hour. So I think a lot of that is him kind of waiting on Quinn. I think some of that is him setting defensive backs up. It's a lot of reasons for that. But I went and looked at Isaiah Bond's top speed, his deep speed. He's at 20.6 miles per hour. So when he's running deep routes, Isaiah Bond actually has a higher top speed than Xavier Worthy, because Xavier Worthy's great at regulating his speed. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's a good thing that because he's a track guy, and track guys, they train at certain speeds, right? You want to peak at the right time, and being able to regulate your speed is actually a skill that sprinters and track athletes have, to know how fast you are running. right? Am I at 75%? Am I at 85%? And I think Worthy just has that ability. With Isaiah Bond, what I'm saying is that his top speed, he actually on some of the deeper routes, he may be more compatible with Quinn because Quinn, oftentimes you would see him. There will be times where he's going to underthrow Xavier Worthy, and then sometimes he's going to overthrow Xavier Worthy. And everybody would be just flabbergasted. How do you overthrow Xavier Worthy? How do you overthrow Xavier Worthy? Because I think at times for Quinn, he had a tough time trying to gauge the speed of Xavier Worthy on some of those deep balls. And because Xavier Worthy he can flip it. I mean, he can go from 0 to 60 real quick. So my point in bringing up the deep ball speed is that you may actually see Isaiah Bond and Quinn end up with better deep ball compatibility. Just because Xavier Worthy and him never got it. They never had that connection on the deep passes. And they had a great connection, but it never really materialized on the deep balls. Quinn has just as good a shot as developing that chemistry, that specific type of continuity with these receivers than he did with Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. So that's something I think Sark wants to bring back. I think he wants to bring back the deep ball. The players most likely to end up being your best deep ball receivers, Isaiah Bond because of his speed, Ryan Wingo because of his combination of speed, size, and contested catchability. And strangely enough, I'm going to say Silas Bowden. I know it's strange, but as a guy his size, and when you see him, you're going to think, I don't think I've ever seen a Texas receiver this small. He plays way bigger than he is, and he's got an uncanny catch radius that is freakish for a guy his size, and his contested catchability is really impressive for someone of his stature. So I'm looking at the three deep threats, probably the best deep threats for Texas. I'd go Bond, speed, Ryan Wingo, just freakish skills, and then I'd go with Silas Bowden, just a playmaker down the field. And I think he'll end up in some one-on-one situations where teams are gonna prioritize some of the other weapons Texas may have. They may prioritize trying to stop a guy like Isaiah Bond. They may try to prioritize, getting over the top of a guy like Bond who's got that kind of speed and allowing Silas Bowden to work the underneath. But I think he could end up being a really good deep threat. It feels strange to say it because of how small he is, but you just got to watch him. He passes the eye test. There's no doubt about that. All right, we come back. We'll get into the facts with the stats segment right here on the Rodcast and dive into some of the college football factoids. I got a couple of WNBA factoids to share with you. We're jam-packed with it right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis here. Let's talk about our friends over at Dr. Eckerd's office. Dr. Greg Eckerd and his team are fantastic. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude. I initially went there for just a routine cleaning and a checkup, and during that very thorough checkup, they found that my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways, and I was on the verge of a dire, disastrous situation, but no need to worry. I was in great hands with Dr. Eckerd and his team. They made sure they got the procedure scheduled. I was well informed and educated about the process, how everything would go down, and made sure I was comfortable with the process. Had the procedure done, back at work within a couple of days, and my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better thanks to Dr. Eckerd and his team. So hopefully for you, it's not as serious as having all your wisdom teeth extracted. Hopefully for you, it's something simple as general dentistry or teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Greg Eckerd and his team are all about. And right now, he can give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secure your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures first until they can complete your permanent smile. You're going to smile again with confidence and eat freely without without pain or discomfort. So we're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, just call Dr. Eckert today to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just one day. I know it sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. U. It's a complimentary consultation, so you got nothing to lose but so much to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. So give him a call today, 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166. And right now, if you go there and tell them that you heard it right here on the Horn, that you're a Horn listener, you'll get free Zoom whitening, a free Zoom whitening treatment when you tell them that you are a fan of the Horn and you heard it here first. That's right, folks. So visit drueckert.com, drueckert.com. All right, I wanted to get into this in Rod's rant, but we ran out of time. Trent Williams is holding out for the 49ers. I think Trent Williams might be the most valuable non-quarterback in the league right now. He's definitely in that conversation. How about these stats? Brock Purdy with Trent Williams on the field last year. The pressure rate, 39% pressure rate. But with Trent Williams off the field last year, that number rose to 45%. Went from a 39% pressure rate to a 45% pressure rate. And the sack rate with Trent Williams on the field, 5.4% sack rate. That number rose to over 6% with Trent Williams off the field. The interception rate, how about this? With the interception rate with Trent Williams on the field, 1.7% for Brock Purdy. When he's off the field, 5.2% interception rate for Brock Purdy. The touchdown rate with Williams on the field, 6.7% for Purdy. Off the field, 2.6% touchdown rate. So Brock Purdy should definitely be advocating Trent Williams get this new deal. 28 touchdowns and 2 interceptions for Brock Purdy last season with Trent Williams on the field. Without Trent Williams, 3 touchdowns, 9 interceptions with Trent Williams off the field. Much different Brock Purdy. And the run game, how about this? The 49ers have a 51.4% success rate when running behind Trent Williams and to the left, compared to just 47% success rate when running to the right. And they run to the left a whole lot more than they run, probably 3 times more they run to the left than they run to any other gap in the 49ers offense. He is him. And if they got to figure out something, because he wants to be paid like he's the most valuable non-quarterback in the league. I think he wants to be paid like that. And then you got to pay Ayuk too. So the 49ers, this is why we talk about the 5-year window, guys. Because you can only keep great players for so long before they demand to be paid what they're worth. And the only way for you to be a GM and truly get value with a roster is for guys to be outperforming their contracts. If you don't have a certain percentage of your roster outperforming their contract, then your roster is going to be dead pretty soon, because your salary cap is going to be busted, because you're not going to have any value with players. That's what the draft is all about. Most of your draft class should be outperforming their contract, and then you even want to have some vets that you have that have outperformed their either rookie deal or they're outperforming their current deal. And the more guys you have like that, that is really going to determine how wide open your window is. But as soon as you got to pay all those dudes, they're not outperforming their contracts anymore. If I give you $100 million in guaranteed money, guess what? You're supposed to be performing like an all-pro. I'm paying you $100 million in guaranteed money. Right? And so no surprise there. Okay, congratulations. You don't get credit for stuff you're supposed to do. Remember Chris Rock said that? You don't get credit for, hey, my kids, I take care of my kids. I'm always at work on time. I never go to jail. Those are things you're supposed to do. You don't get credit for those. Quit trying to get credit for stuff you're supposed to do. I pay my bills on time. Good for you. You're supposed to pay your bills on time. You don't get credit for that stuff. All right. And when you're paid $100 million, you're supposed to perform like $100 million man. So I ain't giving you credit for that. You get credit when you outperform the expectations and outperform your contract. And I think that's what ultimately you're looking for. And the 49ers don't have many of those guys left. And they're running out of those guys. They're running out of them. Kansas City's running out of them too, but Kansas City found another one. Matter of fact, yeah, this is a perfect example of it. They found another one. You've seen this running back they found? Carson Steele. The Kansas City Chiefs found undrafted running back they got. Remember, Isaiah Pacheco was a 7th round running back, so essentially he's close to being outdrafted. But they got this young kid, Carson Steele, out of UCLA by way of Ball State. Even though he was undrafted, I don't even know how he was undrafted. Now look at his numbers. He had 3,259 total yards he gained, and 28 touchdowns on 648 carries in his 3 college seasons. So he was really productive. He averaged 5 yards per carry in college, 184 forced missed tackles, had 44 runs of 15 plus yards, and really was a human highlight reel, and ended up going undrafted. It happens. If you go look at it through 2021 and 2023 in college, no player created more yards after initial contact than Carson Steele when undrafted. But of course, the rich get richer, and the Chiefs found this dude. And he's been killing it in the preseason. How about this one? In the preseason, still total, he had 87 yards and 2 touchdowns in 3 preseason games on just 11 rushes. He had 11 rushes and 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. He forced 9 missed tackles on those 11 rushes. 81 of those 87 yards came after first contact. And 3 of those 11 runs went for 15 or more yards. He's doing exactly what he did in college. And he didn't get drafted there. The Chiefs, they're like, hey, man, this dude looks pretty good. And now their 2 top running backs will be Pacheco and this dude, Carson Steele. And he turns out to be a stud. Outperforming their contracts. That's what you need him to do. So they found another one the Chiefs did. It's pretty amazing. Like it really is. Like I said, that's why Brett Veach is considered one of the best GMs in the NFL, because he had L'Jarius Sneed for a while. He had him outperforming his deal. He had Tyreek Hill. Remember, they had Patrick Mahomes outperforming his deal. Patrick Mahomes is outperforming his deal. He's now outside of the, what is he, 10th highest paid quarterback in the league, something like that, average annual value?
12th?
10th or he might be, he's outside the top 10 now in highest paid quarterbacks in the league. He's outperforming his deal. There you go. And yeah, this kid Steele, he's 2nd on the depth chart. He's ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this undrafted free agent. So there are 2 top running backs. The 7th round pick Pacheco and his kid Carson Steele. both of them outperforming their deals or outperforming their draft status or undrafted free agent status, I should say, for Carson Steele. So that's the key. You got to be able to do that over and over again every year. And the best organizations like the Chiefs, they find a way to do it not only in contracts with veteran players like Mahomes and Kelsey for years too, by the way, but they also do it in the draft. You got to do it everywhere. You got to extract value everywhere you can get it and try to get somehow to get that player to outperform the deal you signed him for. Remember, that's why I was mad at the Texans. They had Stephon Diggs, they had him on a team-friendly deal, and then they decided to flip the script and then basically give him a player-friendly deal and make him a free agent when he wanted to next season. They did the same thing with Joe Mixon. They got great value by trading for Joe Mixon, and then they essentially gave up the value when they signed him to a new deal as an aging running back. I'm like, nope. You want them to outperform their deals. That's the whole point. The more guys outperforming their deals, the better off you're going to be as an organization. The wider your window is going to be. Now, the Texans, they don't have to worry about it as much because their window is so wide open because of CJ Stroud and because of DeMeco Ryans and because of Will. They hit on head coach, QB, foundational defensive piece. So they don't have to be, nitpicky and try to extract value from every little, acquisition. But when you're toward the end of your window, you do. You do. It's just important. Right now for the Texans, their window is so wide open. It's it's crazy how right now for 4 years they really should be in a championship hunt. And we'll see if they take advantage of it. I think they will. All right, we come back. There you go. What the facts, what the stats. We come back. We'll get into the NFL cut down day, the 53-man rosters for the Cowboys, for the Texans, what Longhorns made those 53-man rosters. We'll go behind the burn-ons curtain, talk Texas, Colorado State, all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to, it, of course, is a One Artist Wednesday. One Artist Wednesday is devoted to one special artist, band, or group. My man Patrick Davis, my co-host, the Idea goes deep down the rabbit hole into the catalog of one specific artist, band, or group, and then they are the feature for One Artist Wednesday. Today it is Michael Jackson, who will be celebrating, or who would have been celebrating a birthday. My man Patrick wants to give a shout out to that, so today is a tribute to Michael Jackson. Also, we'll get into the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. That is also a creation of one Patrick Davis. And Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Big Fat Poll of the day today. Whoa, who will score for the first touchdown for Texas this season? Right now, Jaden Blue running away with it. Jaden Blue is the easy answer. He's got 75% of the votes. Isaiah Bond getting 19% of the votes. Silas Bolden getting 4%. And only 2% for Jonte Cook. No love for Jonte Cook.
Jonte Cook. Yeah, Jonte Cook, I will admit, he's getting looked over here. Like with all the new receivers coming in, a lot of talk about Silas Bolden, and I gotta admit, I'm on that Silas Bolden hype train. So I've been part of the reason it's being hyped up. But I seen him in person, and trust me, passed the eye test. Isaiah Bond, we just talked about Isaiah Bond, right? And Isaiah Bond, he is, in most people's eyes, projected to fill the role of the number one wide receiver, just because he fits the prototypical Sark receiver, right? That he's a speed demon, and speed is his elite trait. And Sark loves guys who just have world-class speed, and that's what Xavier Worthy had. And a lot of people think, oh man, Xavier Worthy had world-class speed. Isaiah Bond, he can do a lot of the same things. Guys, I can tell you right now, they're very different receivers. Very different receivers. Yeah. I think Xavier Worthy's better with the ball in his hands. I think Xavier Worthy has better acceleration and deceleration. I think Xavier Worthy is a better route runner than Isaiah Bond. I just think Xavier Worthy is a better player than Isaiah Bond overall. Not saying Isaiah Bond might even be drafted higher just because of some of his measurables and metrics, and he may prove me wrong. But I just think they're very different. And I'm not saying that Isaiah Bond is not going to be a number one and not good, but I do think they're just they are different. Now, one thing they have in common is their world-class speed. I believe Isaiah Bond had 18 plays in 2023 where he hit at least 20 miles per hour. The only FBS receiver who had more such plays was Xavier Worthy. So they do have that in common, but I do think their skill sets are a little bit different overall. But Stark just needs a speed demon. That's one thing. It's the commonality of all the receivers that he pretty much brings in. That's something that he covets. So everybody's high on Isaiah Bond. Everybody's high on Bolden. Everybody, likes Golden. Kind of just natural to throw that in there. Golden, Bolden, Bond. And then there's a lot of hype about Ryan Wingo, because he's a young prodigy, a young phenom.
Yeah.
He's gonna, anytime we saw him in the spring game and he stood out, he's a guy that if he gets it right, if he learns, because even Sark said he only knows the outside receiver position. If he learns all the different positions before the season is done, his timeline and his developmental timeline is going to be accelerated, no question. And it's only a matter of time for him before he becomes a true number one wide receiver. So that's a lot of hype about him. But there's no talk about Cook and DeAndre Moore. But I can see why DeAndre Moore doesn't get hype, because he never did. Right? He kind of came in, I'm not saying he was underrated coming in as a recruit, but there's never been hype about DeAndre Moore. That's why he took on the role as, hey, I'm the Jay Witt of this group. Yeah. That's my mentor. I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the hard work. I got a blue collar mentality. I'm going to be the first guy out to practice, one of the last guys to leave practice. That's what I do. I'm going to be the glue guy in this cycle. That's what I want to be. And I don't think he's gotten much hype anyway. And he's kind of earned the trust of teammates and coaches that way. But Jonte Cook came in with hype. He's one of the highest rated receivers coming out of high school. There's been tons of hype about him. Even last season, there was hype about a young Jonte Cook.
I think there was more hype last season than this season.
I agree.
Which is crazy.
Totally agree with you.
But I think that last season we talked more and more, or at least listeners would text in more. There was conversations. Is Jonte Cook going to break in to this receiver rotation this season? Oh man, did you see what Jonte Cook did? And now he's just continuing to do that. But he set the bar high enough last year. It's like, no, show me something new.
I agree with you. I remember the hype about it because I remember last year thinking like, man, I think they're gonna play this young buck. And even Sark said we got to find some plays for Jonte Cook because they thought he was doing so well in practice.
Yeah.
And the hype it has died down, and I hope that just means that because we haven't heard anything bad. There's
No.
nothing. There's no reports about. Oh man, they've been passing him up on the depth chart and they're taking reps away from Jonte. I haven't heard any of that either. It's just we haven't heard
for the
hype
record,
either.
I haven't heard any hype about Isaiah Bond from practice. I've heard the same from Jonte Cook and Isaiah Bond, which is they're doing good.
Yeah, Isaiah.
I just always knew, but
yeah,
neither one of them are from practice. You hear Silas Bolden is a big one. You hear Ryan Wingo we saw in the spring game he was a new, but really Isaiah Bond and Jonte Cook are just doing their jobs and doing it well, but because they're not exceeding expectations, like Matthew Golden isn't really exceeding expectations either. He's doing, I think there's some people that did not expect him because he came from Houston. So maybe he's exceeding those expectations. But like the guys that you think are probably going to be your more frontline starters and go, I think you're just playing well. And maybe Sark's kind of playing him down a little bit too, because he doesn't want to let everybody know before you get too far into it who he's got, what he's got up his sleeve, and how good this receiving core really is.
Yeah, the Isaiah Bond thing, I don't know, maybe he's not getting a lot of hype, but I remember in the spring game when Sark went out of his way to force feed him the football.
Yeah.
Try to get him going because him and Quinn didn't get going early. So he's like, now I want to show off Isaiah Bond. He didn't do that for anybody else.
No.
That's to me, that means, and I know he was like, oh, well, Sark wasn't contemplating, but I think he's one of the guys that Sark wants to get going, and elite speed like that. Sark, he's a sucker for elite speed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a sucker for a big button to smile, and Sark's a sucker for a wide receiver elite world class speed.
But by the way,
that's why Isaiah Bond's gonna get a chance to be number one. But is he gonna take advantage of it? I don't know.
No, and I agree with you. I'm not saying anything bad about Isaiah Bond, but I'm simply pointing out that I feel like last season we went into it with Jonte Cook, and I feel like he's being a little disrespected at this point because people are just kind of looking past him and looking at the new shiny toys. And I think he's going to be a hell of a receiver for Texas. And that was, if we just looking at practice reports and stuff from scrimmages, we're hearing roughly the same for Isaiah Bond and Jonte Cook, which is not a ton.
Yeah. I probably heard more about Isaiah Bond, but not much more.
And I've heard some things about Isaiah Bond that weren't positive. So, but that was just their timing wasn't great, which we saw in the spring game too. Yeah, but that's not, that's fixable stuff. It's just, it's more on the point of, I think it's interesting that Jonte Cook is not getting the love that, and hopefully he comes out in the next 2 weeks and does so well that everyone goes, oh no, we knew. No, we've been talking about him the whole time. Remember when we were talking about him?
No, listen. I've been high on Jonte Cook. I think players at the combine, when they talk to media and about the team, they all brought up Jonte Cook independently and talked about how great he was. So I think Jonte Cook should be in the conversation to be the number one guy, considering he knows the offense better than everybody else in that wide receiver room. He's got more time and chemistry with Quinn than anybody else in that wide receiver room, and he's got the really high upside. It's just, I haven't heard much about him taking on that role, but I haven't heard anybody taking on the role of being the number one receiver, which makes me think, I don't know if there is a number one guy this year. Like you may have a one player lead you in touchdowns, which you had last year, and a different player leads you in receptions. I could see you having a different leading receiver in like 4 to 5 different games at the wide receiver position. I could see it being an Isaiah Bond one game because he took the top off of defense and he had 2 or 3 big, long, explosive plays. I could see it being a Silas Bolden one game because he just kind of fits and had a matchup that they really liked. I could see it being a Jonte Cook a couple of games. I think I have more of a feeling that that's the way it goes. I'm not sure you have 1,000-yard receiver this year. And that doesn't mean the receiving core is, going to be deficient in any way. I just think you're going to have so many guys that really contribute. And I don't know if you get a huge amount of separation between the group. I think you just have, I think you end up with 4 or 5 steady guys that you really like that are very, very dependable. But I don't know if you get a guy like Xavier Worthy that becomes you have a leading receiver. I don't know if you have a number one receiver. Does that make sense? You have a leading receiver. I don't know if you have a number one guy in the group.
Yeah. No, exactly. And we could find one out by, by week 4 or 5 too, that's that guy. That whoever Quinn gets that chemistry with. But I honestly think Matthew Golden's going to be a guy who gets a ton of receptions just because of the kind of player he is, that he's going to find a way to just run routes and be a very reliable receiver.
Consistent, yeah.
Yeah, and consistent.
Yeah. No, I can see that too. I can see him being, because a lot of underneath stuff, and he could be like their bubble screen guy and a tunnel screen guy and that kind of stuff on the RPO. No, I have no idea how it's going to look. I can't wait to see how it ends up materializing on the field, because it can only be good. It's only going to be like one of these guys is going to be great, and we don't know, or 4 of them are going to be all really, really good, and they're all going to step up at different times in different parts of the season. Different guys are going to separate. Like, I don't see it being bad though. I think the one thing that may slow the chemistry with the wide receivers and Quinn is just, the timing on the routes, and because there's a lot of new faces in that room. But it's only a matter of time before that clicks. And it didn't take long with Quinn and AD Mitchell. I'll admit that. That didn't take long at all.
Yeah.
And hopefully a couple of guys are kind of like AD Mitchell when he came in, that him and Quinn immediately, they got that good thing going. They got the groove. All right, there you go. Topic for the Big Fat Poll today. See, can be a conversation starter. Let's get to the Horn headlines with Patrick Davis and get informed, educated, and updated. And then we'll talk about the roster cut downs and the Cowboys and the Texans, who made the final 53 for both of those teams. But first, let's get to Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped another game to the Phillies last night, getting blanked 6-0. Verlander threw 90 pitches in his second game back from injury, but only made it through 5 innings, giving up 4 runs. The Astros will try to salvage a game against Philadelphia tonight, with Spencer Arrighetti getting the start. And the Rangers have to wait another day to begin their series with the White Sox, as last night's game was suspended after 4 pitches due to rain. The Rangers will now play a doubleheader today, with Andrew Heaney still expected to make the start for the Rangers in Game 1, followed by Jack Leiter taking the mound on his 3rd call-up to the majors this season. And that's your Horn headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. We appreciate those. All right, let's get to the 53-man roster. Let's start with the Dallas Cowboys, and we'll talk about any surprises along the way. The quarterback position, as expected, Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, and Trey Lance, the most expensive third-string quarterback in the league. Those are your 3 quarterbacks. They keep 3 of them. The running back, Zeke, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn makes it. And Patrick and I talked about the last couple of games in preseason. He really did impress. Looked like the most elusive back for the Cowboys. So now more than just a feel-good story, Deuce Vaughn makes the final 53 for the Cowboys. Hunter Luepke, he's a fullback for the Cowboys, but he makes it as well as a part of that backfield. The wide receiver room, CeeDee Lamb, if you'll recall, obviously just signed his deal. And prior to that, he was on the reserve, did not report list during his holdout. So he's not officially on this roster, but he will be, and they'll move some things around just to make sure. But Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, Ryan Flournoy makes it. Flournoy, he makes it, and I did not think he would. So I think that's a surprise, along with Cavante Turpin at the wide receiver position. Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, John Stevens Jr., and Brevin Spann-Ford are the tight ends. Offensive line, you have Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele, Brock Hoffman, TJ Bass, Asim Richards, Matt Waletzko, and Chuma Idoga. D line, Michael Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Marshawn Nealon, Tyrus Wheat, Oza Adigizua, Mozzie Smith, Chauncey Golston, Jordan Phillips, Linville Joseph. Linebackers are Eric Kendricks, DeMarvion Overshown, Maurice LaFau, Damone Clark, and Buddy Johnson. The corners, Trevon Diggs, Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson, Andrew Booth, and Makuyamu. Remember, you have Duran Bland, who is going to start the season on the IR because of the injury. He's got a stress fracture in his foot to start the season. Going to be out like 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks at the most. Safeties: Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, Marquise Bell, Wanye Thomas. Your specialists are Brandon Aubrey, Brian Anger, Trent Sieg, and CJ Goodwin. Those are the players who made the 53-man roster for the Dallas Cowboys. I think the most pleasant surprise is Deuce Vaughn. Like I said, more than just a feel-good story now. And maybe just one of the bigger surprises overall is Ryan Flournoy making it the wide receivers. I don't know if they plan on, potentially moving things around when CeeDee Lamb comes back just to make room. But I heard he was making a move toward the end of the preseason, and that last preseason game, I think it put him over the top. So good for that young man to make it too. Cowboys traded Peyton Hendershot. They were going to cut him, decided to trade him to Kansas City. They traded him for a conditional late round pick. Here are the conditions of that late round pick. If the Cowboys receive a 7th round pick in 2026, if Hendershot is on the 53-man roster for 5 games this season, or if Hendershot is on the 46-man game day roster for 3 games this season, they don't get anything if either are not met in that case. So Peyton Hendershot, he actually makes the roster for the Chiefs, and he's at 3rd tight end, which means he's going to play. They play more 13 personnel than any team in the NFL, and he's their 3rd tight end behind Kelsey Gray, and he's ahead of Jared Wiley. Jared Wiley from the Longhorns and went to TCU. Apparently, the Kansas City Chiefs really like him, and they kept 4 tight ends, but 3 of them guys, like I said, will play because nobody plays 3 tight ends more than the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, so that's the Cowboys roster there. At least they're a 53-man roster for now. Some things will change. There's usually some subtle movements, some kind of discrete, small changes to everybody's roster between cut down day to 53-man roster until the opening game day roster. As you'll see, the Cowboys are a prime example. CeeDee Lamb will be added to that roster somehow, so they'll move things around. Deron Bland, of course, is on the IR, and so every team anticipates that happening. Getting to the Texans also were obviously, like every team, obligated to get their team down to 53, and their 53-man roster had a few surprises. One of the most, I think, notable was that they didn't keep a 3rd quarterback. They decided to just go with 2 quarterbacks. Case Keenum is on the IR because of a recent injury for him, so he's going to start the season on the injured reserve. C.J. Stroud and Davis Mills are the quarterbacks. Running backs, they did keep 5 running backs: Cam Akers, Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce, Ungbawale, and British Brooks. As Patrick mentioned earlier, British Brooks being the big surprise there. Not a lot of people thought he would make that move. Wide receivers are Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods, Tank Dell, John Mechie III, Nico Collins, Xavier Hutchinson, and Steven Sims. The tight ends, Brevin Jordan, Dalton Schultz, Cade Stover, who they really like. Offensive line, Kendrick Green, Jared Patterson, Blake Fisher, Nick Baroka, Shaq Mason, Juice Scruggs, Titus Howard, Kenyon Green, and Larry Tunsil. Defensive line, they got Will Anderson Jr., of course, Jerry Hughes, Daniil Hunter, Fatu Kasi, and Khalil Davis, Derek Barnett, Mario Edwards Jr., and Tim Settle Jr. To start the season. The DBs, Jalen Petrie, Jeffrey Okuda, they cut CJ Henderson, Kamari Lassiter, Chris Boyd, shout out to him, lifetime Longhorn, Jimmy Ward, Eric Murray, Derek Stingley Jr., MJ Stewart, Miles Bryant, Kalen Bullock are your DBs, and linebackers, Azeez Al-Shaair, Delshon Phillips, Jake Hansen, the undrafted free agent, Henry Teoto, Neville Hewitt, and Jamal Hill are the linebackers, and your specialists are Tommy Townsend, Cammie Fairborn, and John Weeks as your specialists for the Texans. So the big surprise is the quarterback position, 1 less QB and 1 less defensive line. Remember, they said they were going to keep more D linemen, and 1 less QB, 1 less D lineman, and 1 extra running back and an extra offensive lineman, probably in anticipation that there will be, knock on wood, some more injuries on the offensive line. Remember, last season, the Texans had the most injury-riddled offensive line in the last 20 years in the NFL. So maybe that's an anticipation of some injuries there. And like I said, the 5 running backs, kind of a surprise too for the Texans. The Texans also they announced they're going to start the season with Christian Harris, their linebacker, on the IR. And I think they anticipated this happening somehow. So, I mean, they couldn't have been caught by surprise with this injury. So, I think in the preseason, they've done some things to try to, safeguard themselves potentially from him being out an extended period of time. One of the things I think they did, and we talked about this, they actually had some sub packages they were experimenting with. We talked about this maybe a couple of weeks ago during the preseason, that they were experimenting with a 3 safety sub package, big, what they call a big nickel. Regular nickel is when you have 3 corners on the field and 2 safeties. Big nickel is when you have 3 safeties on the field and 2 corners. They had a big nickel package they were experimenting with. We talked about that, where Jalen Petrie was at the nickel and Eric Murray was the 3rd safety in a few of those plays, and Kalen Bullock was the 3rd safety. Well, I read also during the joint practices with the Rams that they had a dime package, which is a 6 DB package, where it said they used 4 safeties were on the field. Now, I think these safeties were being used at linebacker depth, essentially fulfilling linebacker roles, but they were DBs on the field. And I believe they had them playing at linebacker depth. And that's the good thing about moving Jalen Petrie back to nickel. Even though he's a DB, he can fulfill some of your linebacker duties. He's got really good instincts. He's a really good tackler, very, very aggressive and physical. So he can do some of the things and fulfill some of the roles and obligations that you would have your linebackers doing at that depth. So I think that also, may be another factor in helping them adapt to whatever without Christian Harris out there on the field, and maybe using some of those exotic sub packages. Jake Hansen is a guy that can play any linebacker position. He's an undrafted free agent, but that's one of the reasons the Texans like him, because he can play any position in the linebacking core, which also manufactures depth. With Christian Harris being out, they love Aziz Al-Shaair, so he's a rock with that linebacking core. Henry To'oTo'o is great in run support, not so great in pass defense. I think he'll get better there, just a young player. So I think playing the exotic sub packages, moving Jalen Petrie to nickel, which obviously is used at a lot of linebacker depth there, and having a guy like Jake Hansen that can play multiple on all of the positions at the linebacker depth there in the linebacker room. I think those are all things that'll help them. So he won't be out all season, but for the time being, until they actually do have a timeline and when he can come back, they do have some options, solutions potentially with issues that could arise with linebacker depth. Now, they can't afford to have any other injuries. Remember, I thought they would go after Ernest Jones, the Rams linebacker, because of just trying to upgrade the linebacker position. Did not know about the Christian Harris injury, but he was also traded in the division to the Titans for a 5th round pick, and they swapped a 6th. So he's going in the division. I bet the Texans looked into it. I don't know if they probably called anybody, but I bet they looked into it. In fact, a lot of teams should have looked into it. It's a really good starting linebacker in the league, but he's going to the Tennessee Titans. And I'll say it again. I went on a rant about this, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. Whenever they signed, I believe it was Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, when they signed those guys. So I don't know how long ago that was. And I looked at that Titans defense, because I was looking at some of the division folks for the Texans. And I told you guys, they're doing something pretty funky, and funky in a good way. Like they are built. I think they're trying to adapt to the ecosystem of the AFC South, and they're looking at all of this arms race and these really just stockpiles of offensive talent that the Jacksonville Jaguars are accumulating. The Texans are accumulating right now as well. Look even how uniquely gifted the quarterback for the Colts is. I mean, he's one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks we've ever seen in the NFL. And they're starting to, get their own accumulation of weapons. There's an arms race happening in the AFC South. And I believe their answer to it is, we can't join the arms race offensively. We just don't have, we ain't got they all got great quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is a young, great quarterback, was number 1 overall pick, and CJ Stroud was the number 2 overall pick. So he's a really good player. And Anthony Richardson is a freakishly physically gifted athlete at quarterback. We ain't got that. We ain't got that. So we can't even start the arms race and try to compete with them offensively, because we don't have anything close to what they have at the quarterback position. Now, until we get that, then we can start that process. But right now, I think they're focused on what we can build to counter all of these prolific offense in our ecosystem of the AFC South is to build maybe the most unique defense in that division. They'll have Tavondre Sweat on the D line, who's the biggest D tackle in the NFL, arguably. They'll have sideline to sideline linebacker and Kenneth Murray. Ernest Jones is a tackling machine. They just traded for him. L'Jarius Sneed, best bump and run corner in the NFL, so he can lock somebody down. He can bump and run guys on the interior too. He can bump and run guys in the slot, which nobody does. But he's a madman when it comes to it. They got Quandre Diggs, who plays any position in the secondary, but also plays more center fielder than any other DB in the NFL in the last couple of years. And then they got Jamal Adams, who's a hybrid linebacker / safety, who can come down to linebacker depth and basically play linebacker when you need him to, or be a safety if need be. I wouldn't put him in coverage too much, but those are a lot of freaky, unique pieces, and I like it. I mean, I can tell where the vision is going. The vision is multiplicity. The vision is force the offense to have to game plan for your unique freaks instead of you having to obviously be adapting constantly and letting them dictate terms of the matchup. You can dictate some of the terms, because if you have enough unique freaks on your defense, the offenses will be deterred from doing certain things because of just, I won't run that against the biggest D tackle in the league. Or if the cornerback is playing bump and run, well, that eliminates a lot of our quick game and a lot of the RPO game. There's just certain concepts that you won't run or deploy when you're going up against freakier skill sets, very, specific, unique skill sets or frames. And that's what they're going for. They're just going for freaky frames and freaky skills. And I like it. I think it's a cool way to go to build the defense. Will it work? I don't know, but it's worth a try. We shall see. All right, we come back. We'll get into some Texas football conversation, go behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll talk about the Longhorns, who were on the cusp potentially of being cut, or on the cutting block for cut down day. We'll talk about those who made it as Longhorns and those who did not make it. And we'll also get into some Texas, Colorado State discussion. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. I guess we can start because we were talking about all the guys who made NFL rosters. We were just talking about how freaky the Tennessee Titans defense is because of all the pieces they brought in, and one of those pieces, a couple of those pieces are Longhorns, right? They're just so I guess we can start there. I've talked about it. They're doing something freaky out in Tennessee, and the Longhorns are a big part of it because two of their starting pieces are going to be Longhorns. Tavondre Sweat, and like I said, he'll be the most massive D tackle, arguably, in all the NFL coming out. They'll have the Quandre Diggs, who can play any position in the secondary, and by the way, is probably in the last 2 years has played more deep safety than any safety in the league. So my point is that all these kind of unique elements, unique skills, unique frames, right? Even Quandre is a unique frame. Quandre Sweat's a unique frame. They got Jamal Adams, who's a hybrid linebacker / safety. L'Jarius Sneed, who plays more bumping or corner body. So they're very unique. And then, Patrick, you just broke down something I didn't realize either, because Kamji Coburn, remember, lifetime Longhorn Kamji Coburn is also on this Titan squad as a D lineman. To further my point about them doing something freaky, what did you find in looking at their 53-man roster?
So when I looked, I went, okay, well, who are their pass rushers on their D ends? Who's their edges? They only have 4 defensive linemen listed, not defensive tackles, defensive linemen. 4. Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Keandre Coburn. 2 of them are Longhorns.
2 Longhorns,
but they only had 4. They have 11 linebackers.
11 linebackers. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. That's crazy. I did not know that.
And then
I did not notice that.
And then they only have 4 cornerbacks, but 5 safeties. So they're going to run linebackers and safeties a lot.
Yeah, freaky stuff going on, man. They got a vision for it. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to work, but I kind of like it. I like the approach. They're getting wild. They're getting buck wild out there in Tennessee. And the Longhorns, they got some Longhorns that are a big part of this new formula they have on defense. It's Denard Wilson, right? The defensive coordinator there.
Yeah, who's done well with safeties. He's got experience in that world and created some good safeties. We've looked at his past history and Kyle Hamilton and what he's done with Jamal Adams and you know, he's done a lot of big things in the past with safeties, but this is a unique
Frankenstein.
It's a defense.
Yeah, it's a Frankenstein, man. This is a Frankenstein monster he's building. And I said, I wonder if it's going to turn on him, or
I don't know, but I feel like this is a concept of looking at a ecosystem monetarily, economically, and saying what are the most expensive positions on defense, edge rushers and DBs. All right, well, we're gonna get safeties and linebackers. We're running our whole defense around safeties and linebackers, and screw the guys who want money.
Yeah,
we're not going to use them.
They did pay L'Jarius Sneed, but you're right. That's because that's who they have as kind of their shutdown corner. And the other corner, I'll look at it here: L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, Roger McCreary, Jarvis Brownlee. Yeah, that said, I can't. I got to watch some Titans. I'll get to watch them twice at least when they play the Texans. But I got to watch some more games now. Not only because you got a couple of Longhorns they're representing, 3 Longhorns actually on that defense. But this might be, at least structurally, one of the most unique defenses in the league. I know right now, just looking at it conceptually and look at the personnel, it's freaky and unique. But I wonder what he's going to do schematically with all these different pieces. Like you said, 4 D linemen, 4 D linemen. And they're basically D tackles, right? These are all D tackles pretty much.
Because Simmons is, and so is Coburn and Sweat.
Yeah, so he just did linebackers on the edges. He's going to have D tackles inside. Oh, man, it's going to be freaky. It'll be freaky. Okay, so there you go. That's some Longhorns who made the 53-man roster. We're not going to go through all the Longhorns, like Xavier Worthy and Byron Murphy and, guys like the A.D. Mitchell we've talked about. Those guys are – matter of fact, there was no Longhorn in this draft class that was cut. That's a really good sign. So we're only going through the guys who were like Rod B., who were, Jags and jabronis who were shaking in their boots every cut down day and hoping nobody spoke to them and no coach came over to them and no executive came over to them on that day, because it usually wasn't a good sign. So yeah, we know there are a lot of guys in the league for Texas representing the burnt orange, but we're only going through the guys who were on the verge of being cut, or at least it was a possibility they could be cut. Xavier Worthy, Byron Murphy, Justin Tucker. All right, I'm not gonna get into all those guys. Remember, I told you guys JT Sanders too. I told you guys yesterday, JT Sanders not only was going to make the team, but JT Sanders right now was getting starting reps because the two tight ends in front of him were hurt. And he's already, in a lot of people's minds, started to make the move to surpass those guys. So told you about JT Sanders yesterday. We got into that. Here are some of the names. Deontay Foreman, probably one of the more notable Longhorns to be cut. He was released from the Browns, released him. And remember, he had a neck injury a couple of weeks ago in the preseason, required a trip to the hospital. It was really, really scary. Turns out he was okay. I do wonder if that's going to affect his ability to get picked up by another team, at least for the time being. Colin Johnson also was released by the Bears. Thought he would make that team because of the big preseason game he had. Remember, he had that preseason game with 3 receptions, 2 touchdowns. It was actually over the Texans, that Hall of Fame game. But he had a hamstring injury that really set him back later on in the preseason. But as Patrick mentioned earlier, a lot of people believe he's going to make the practice squad. So we'll get you a practice squad update. They usually have those finalized, but by the end of this week, this weekend, teams have started to finalize their practice squads too. So there's a belief that Colin Johnson could make the practice squad. Also, Calvin Anderson of the New England Patriots, remember, veteran offensive lineman, lifetime Longhorn, he was placed on the season-ending injured reserve, unfortunately, and so was Ryan Watts. That was strange to me. I thought Ryan Watts only had a stinger. Turns out, whatever it is, it was more serious. And Patrick, you said maybe now they're just
I'd say there was a few people that were listed out on it. I was looking it up, and there are certain people saying that there's now concerns that stingers are tied to other issues and tied to more head trauma and CTE, and so they're doing more research into stingers, and they're being much safer with them now, and so it is something that they're trying to be more conscious of with the stingers. But yeah, I guess depending on where it is and how bad it was, I think there's just the long-term effects of them is what they're a little bit more scared of now. But I mean, I think it's also in the Ryan Watts case, sometimes with these younger guys, you can put them on the IR. You keep him on that, he doesn't count your 53 man because he probably wasn't going to crack the rotation this season, but you still get to keep him around on your roster. You're not letting the guy go. So you keep him around without having to give up a spot.
That's actually, I think, a good, I'm not saying it's not a health issue, but I agree. If you can get the benefit of both, I think
if you say we don't know if he's going to play the first 6-7 weeks, we might as well just say, let's shelf him for a year because he's not quite ready to go right now.
Yeah. And that's interesting research. There might be some neurological connection, right, to stingers. So that's the case, unfortunately, for Ryan Watts. 2 players also from the draft class, the recent draft class of 11 guys, Christian Jones and Keelan Robinson. They're going to start off on the injured reserve, but the designated to return injured reserve list. So that's Christian Jones of the Cardinals and Keelan Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Charles Omenihu, remember, he also is starting on the PUP list because he tore his ACL, I believe, and something else. That was before the Super Bowl last season, so he's still working his way back. Josh Thompson, he was waived by the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people believe that it's an injury designation, so if he clears waivers, he could be brought back by the Atlanta Falcons. The Philadelphia Eagles released Caden Stearns. Remember, he had the issue with Denver. He was released by them. They said it was because of some injury concerns, and he failed a physical, remember, with Carolina after that, and now he has been released by the Philadelphia Eagles is with a non-football injury, but he did have some injuries that he suffered. I think that may be part of why he may struggle to find a home. Tariq Black, remember him? The Steelers released him. Tariq Black, who played just that one season for the Longhorns, but he is also out there on the cutting block. And Detroit Lions, they released Malik Jefferson after he was dealing with, I believe, a settlement. He had an injury settlement after he suffered a finger injury in the preseason game, and so he has been released from injured reserve from the Detroit Lions. Also, Jordan Whittington makes the team. No surprise there. We've been talking about how the Rams loved him for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Jalen Ford made the Saints. I'm not surprised there. I said when he was drafted, don't worry, that guy's, no matter where he's drafted, he's going to make a team. All you got to do is see him in a practice or in a training camp, and you'll know he's a football player. Sam Ellinger makes the Colts. Good for him. I know that could potentially was a concern that he may not make the Colts. Were they going to keep 2 or 3 quarterbacks? But he does. And moreover, Ojimo made the Philadelphia Eagles. He made that team, so congrats to him. Among the guys that were cut, I don't know if I mentioned Andrew Beck, but we talked about that earlier in the show when we were talking about the Texans and their roster. He was cut as a fullback / tight end from the Houston Texans. Lil Jordan Humphrey, I believe we
Yes.
brought him up earlier. He was cut from the Denver Broncos, but you said there's a belief they could bring him back as a
Yeah, the
practice
belief
squad
was
guy.
that they really like him, but they're having a lot of rotation in that wide receiver room. They've already said they're getting, they trade off Tim Patrick, and they're trying to figure out who they're going to play. And they're a lot of young guys they have there. But the belief is that he could make he's going to make the practice squad, and then could be elevated for some games this season as well.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's all the guys who were potentially on the cusp of making a team or being cut. So the other guys, we obviously there's some guys who we didn't mention, but they were never in danger of being cut. They're always going to make the team. So those are the guys. Hopefully for the guys who got cut, they're getting the shot. And for the guys who made the teams, the best of luck to them. We come back. We'll get into some off the record conversation. We'll get into some crazy, wacky stories from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some off-the-record stories. A couple of items that I wanted to try to hit here if we have enough time. Sometimes we run out of time because things get a little too wild and crazy on the show. But I saw this yesterday, and I think it broke right at the end of the show, so we didn't have time to discuss it. But Travis and Jason Kelce, they signed a new deal for the exclusive rights of their New Heights podcast. The new podcast deal is worth more than $100 million. Yeah. They reached a 3-year contract with Amazon's Wondery for ad sales and distribution rights, according to Variety magazine. The deal will officially kick in on Wednesday, right before the start of the 2024-2025 season. And according to the report, Wondery will have rights to all video and audio connected to the New Heights podcast with Jason and Travis Kelce. And yeah, $100 million deal. It's a beautiful thing, man. And something tells me that Taylor Swift bump, that I don't know if I'm sure the podcast was going to be successful, no doubt, because both those guys have great personalities. But if they don't get the Taylor Swift bump, I'm going to say it's not worth $100 million. It's probably just worth like 20, 30 million.
Yeah.
Like 30. But because every Swiftie knows, not only could you get a story about his boo thing, Taylor Swift on the podcast, so they're listening every week. But I bet they even plan, I don't even know if they're going to make it a segment, but I bet they plan on having a Taylor Swift anecdote story or something like that every podcast just to keep the Swifties coming. Because that group is so loyal and they're so obsessed with Taylor Swift. They'll listen to every one of them down just to find the smallest little tidbit of information about her life and what's going on. They'll listen. They will. That's the Swifties, man. It's a powerful group. So I think that's why it's worth so much money, is because they know I haven't listened to the podcast once. I'm sure it's good. Have you listened to the podcast?
No,
before?
we've played clips of it though.
We played clips of it.
There's
though. Yeah.
clips of it I've seen, but as a podcast as a
it's
whole,
really funny.
No,
it's really
I've
funny.
never. I haven't.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know a lot of people that have, but I guarantee the numbers right now are through the roof.
Yeah.
And they're through the roof because those guys are good. They're good. And Travis Kelce is a great personality, and so is Jason. They're really funny. But I guarantee the numbers themselves in terms of listenership, it started. If you go look at it, I guarantee if somebody tracked it, they are post and pre Taylor Swift relationship, they just skyrocketed, man.
Yeah. It'll be interesting.
They had to listen. You had to listen. They were only one talking about the relationship. You weren't getting the goods anywhere else.
Yeah.
So all the Swifties went there to try to find actual firsthand account of what was going on between them, and they're still there.
Yeah, it's gonna be an issue if Travis and Taylor Swift break up and then he retires, and they'll just be like, well, now it's just 2 retired football players.
There's a lot of those. There's a lot of those podcasts.
Wait a minute. What do we buy? It's just 2 retired football players talking about football.
That's a great point, because now he's a Super Bowl champion, about to three-peat. He's a number 1 wide receiver for the best quarterback in the league, maybe the GOAT all time when it's all said and done, and he's dating the biggest pop star in the world. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, that's a really easy podcast to sell. So I think that they did it at the right time, at the height. Because I'm with you, even if he did it after he retired, it's not as sellable. It's not as marketable.
Because we're not getting the inside scoop of things that are happening in the NFL season.
Yes.
Where because Eagles fans are probably going to drop off a little bit listening to the podcast.
Yes. Great
because
point.
they're not like, well, I'm not getting the Eagles news anymore. Just like Chiefs fans will drop off after they'll still be there, but there won't be as many, because there'll be Chiefs fans being like, hey, what's Patrick Mahomes up to? All right, what plays are you working on? What have you been working in practice? I got to get a couple nuggets every time they do it.
That's a great point.
It's everything. I know nuggets.
No, so you're right. So it definitely hit its peak when Jason was still playing last year. Travis was still playing last year for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes doing his thing as the best quarterback in the league, and he's dating Taylor Swift. You had so many different fan bases: the Swifties, the Eagles fan bases. You had the Chiefs fan base, and then you had just general fans of football.
And you had Eagles fans listening every week to see if Jason was going to announce if he was going to retire or not.
Yeah, you're right. That's when it hit its peak. That's when they had like a bunch, and that's probably when they sold the podcast. Let's be honest. That's probably when they like, bro, we killing it right now.
Look at these numbers.
Look at these numbers. You're right, and that's gonna be a precipitous drop off as soon as he retires, and then if he and old girl break up, if he and Taylor Swift break up, I think it's real, guys. I think it's real. Now, if it's real enough for them to get engaged, that kind of real, I think it is. I think we may be heading that way because it's quieted down, right, from the initial hype. And now they're just in a relationship. it kind of quieted down. Like we kind of don't. Now, how many months we going on here? How many months we going on? When did they start dating?
I mean,
beginning of the football season?
Was it beginning of last season or was like middle of last season?
It was like maybe October.
Yeah.
Maybe October or something like that. Whenever she started going to the game, somewhere around there. But my point is, we about to get close to a year now. I mean, if that's the case, we're approaching the 10-month period, and things are quiet. Like they're not the couple that's on all the headlines anymore. Now, she's not touring as much anymore, I'm assuming, but hell, she's always touring, doing something, performing. But I wonder if like it's becoming more substantive. There's sustenance now to this thing. I think they get engaged. I don't know if they get married. I think they get engaged. I think they go that far. We'll see. But there you go. So that's the New Heights podcast. They sold it for $100 million. Congrats to those guys. All right. We come back. We'll get into actually my man Nick Shuey's going to come up with Setlist ATX. So we'll get into some of the top musical acts that'll be in town and where you can find them and where you can see them. We'll get into that. Also, we'll go into some other NFL news notes and nuggets. We got Raj Rant coming up in the 9 o'clock. We will talk Texas, Colorado State. We'll talk about that Colorado State defense a little bit. Lots to get into right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Low One Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Mm. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a One Artist Wednesday. That's when Patrick goes deep down the rabbit hole for one specific artist, group, or band, and they become the feature of One Artist Wednesday. And One Artist Wednesday today is featuring paying tribute to Michael Jackson. He'll be celebrating, would have been celebrating a birthday coming up. So my man Patrick decided to make One Artist Wednesday all about MJ. And he's taking one hit, one banger from each of his albums. Tough thing to do because he had so many of them. So we appreciate my man Patrick there. Speaking
fun
of
fact, I'll give you a fun fact about this. So, Weird Al did a parody of this called Fat.
Yes.
But he'd already done Beat It. So he's like, all right, let me call Michael again and see if we can get if you let us do another music video and music parody. And he called him and he's like, oh yeah, of course you can. By the way, I still have the set for the Bad video. If y'all want to use it, you can still use the set. So the Fat music video is filmed on the actual set of the Bad music video.
It's so cool. Weird Al had that kind of pull back in the day.
Yeah, and then Michael Jackson
even Mike's like, oh yeah, man, of course you can.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, man, you gave me the bump with Beat It. You got that's the main reason I'm famous is Weird Al covered my song.
Crazy. That is such. I mean, you can never get away with that these days. Like it's so weird that Weird Al found that kind of niche where he was just making parody songs and videos of all time great pop culture classics, and that was his thing. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know how he got so good at it and how he got so famous.
I don't think there's anyone that's like pure enough to do it where it doesn't seem like aggressive or mean or too much adult where they're trying to make the jokes, but they're too sexual or whatever else.
It was perfect.
Yeah, he just did ones that kids could listen to, but adults could listen to too. Yeah,
and he went through all genres too. I mean, it was hip hop and pop, and he went through all the genres. I mean, that was it. Comedic genius. It really is. I mean, that's pretty much comedic genius.
I just always like that story that he's like, let me see if Michael will let me do another one. He's like, oh yeah, and I have the set. Go ahead and use it.
It was good. And what was the narrative of the Beat It? Was it Eat It? What was the Beat It?
Beat It was Eat It, and then what's the natural follow up is Fat. Yeah.
Natural follow-up. Oh man,
because Bad is another one of those cinematic ones with the whole intro.
Yes,
with Wesley Snipes in it, and
gang, kind of a gang,
and it was like what Francis Ford Coppola was it or somebody like that? Like somebody super famous produced it. So it's directed it. It's crazy that they had all this set up for it, and then it's like then do the one where you wear a fat suit. Same place.
So good. It really, man, itself was great. I mean, it really was. What was the one was it Amish Paradise for Gangster's Paradise? Which one was
Yes.
it? Amish Paradise. Oh,
which was one of the only ones that he said the Coolio people gave him permission, and then afterwards Coolio was upset about it.
Why?
And then the years after the fact, they made amends, and he was like, "Yeah, no, I was trying to."
How could you even get offended by that?
I think it was he was trying to. I'm guessing people kind of got on him because they're like, "Why would you let Weird Al do that? That's corny." And he was trying to keep up street cred, and would be my guess. And then eventually he was like, "Yeah, that's all dumb. That was dumb.
Yeah, that's
we're friends. We're good."
It's the ultimate. It's exactly. It's like being mad because SNL makes fun of you. It's like, no, dude, that's the ultimate compliment.
Exactly.
What do you mean? That's like a great compliment. They chose your song to truly make out a caricature of it, essentially. All right, good stuff there. I like that little factoid. We'll learn some more factoids because we got Nick Shuley coming up with Setlist ATX. We'll get his thoughts about Weird Al Yankovic and what he thinks. We'll also dive into some NFL discussions, NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We got Rod's rant coming up, but first we got the Horn headlines. So let's get updated, let's get educated, and let's get informed on all the top stories today with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines. Then we'll come back and dive into some of the other topics. Actually, we'll come back and hit Setlist ATX from my man Nick Shuley. Then we'll get into some of the other topics. But first, the Horn headlines with Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped another game to the Phillies last night, getting blanked 6-0. Justin Verlander threw 90 pitches in his second game back from injury, but only made it through 5 innings, giving up 4 runs. The Astros will now try to salvage a game against Philadelphia today, with Spencer Arrighetti getting the start. And the Rangers have to wait another day to begin their series with the White Sox, as last night's game was suspended after 4 pitches due to rain. The Rangers will now play a doubleheader today, with Andrew Heaney still expected to make the start for the Rangers in Game 1, followed by Jack Leiter taking them out on his 3rd call-up to the majors this season. And that's your Horn headlines.
Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Appreciate those as always. Like I said, we'll get back to some of the other headlines and big ticket items. Before we do that, though, let's get into Setlist ATX. Got my man Nick Shuley joining us. Always happy that Nick Shuley comes to spend some time with us and educate us on some of the top acts, musical acts coming in town, the most talented acts coming in town, and where you can enjoy all of their talent. So we appreciate him coming on. Nick, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Rod?
Doing good, man. What are your thoughts about Weird Al Yankovic? Were you exposed to Weird Al as a child?
Oh, of course. So my brother was like the biggest Weird Al fan. So it was always playing like in his room right next to mine. So I didn't have a choice, but I loved it. Like it, and I think you guys kind of nailed it. It's like it'd be hard for somebody like that to exist nowadays, because it was like wholesome, but a little bit. And not edgy, but it was just kind of like funny and good.
Yeah.
And it was just tongue in cheek, and like, I don't know that anybody else could do that, but he was pretty funny, man. If you didn't laugh at that, I don't know.
I know. I think these days we'd find some way to be offended by Weird Al. Like,
yeah.
We'd find there'd be too many people. Now, I wouldn't be offended, but too many people would be offended by him. And that was in a time where we were just less offended by things.
100%. Yeah, you could get away with a lot more. People would have gotten offended by Amish paradise nowadays, or something.
Yes,
like,
no doubt.
People who weren't Amish would be fighting for the Amish, to protect them. So
that is so true. I love a great line somebody said about our society today is there's a lot of people that care. They're very passionate about a lot of things they know nothing about. That is us.
That's a great quote.
Very passionate, but I don't know a damn thing about it. But I care deeply about this.
You just
subject.
had that the Amish getting offended, like, well, just don't play it for them.
Exactly.
I doubt they.
They can't hear it unless you play it for them.
You have to go out to Amish country and they go knock on their doors and inform them. Dude, you know they're mocking your culture here, right? You should be offended.
There's no Victrola version of his records.
There is no context in this. Like, they'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
Oh, that is good. All right. Well, since we're actually talking about Michael Jackson, who is the featured artist for one, what are your thoughts about Michael Jackson? Like, what's your favorite Michael Jackson album, song? When did you learn about Michael Jackson as an artist?
Man, my mom loved Michael Jackson, so we listened to that all the time. And I mean, I remember Thriller. I remember when that music video was on. I remember all that. And I mean, I think as far as standing the test of time, so many of his songs do. And man, but I think that Billie Jean is just the ultimate smash for me. Every time I hear that song, it just kind of gets you moving, and I love that song, man. Michael has a special place as a musician in my heart. I'll clarify that. There's a lot.
Everybody's got their one that but he made so many. I can remember him too, and I remember his videos being like television events.
Oh, incredible!
That's kind of something that stood out to me, right? It was like so many of them. Where you're talking about Smooth Criminal or like all
song.
of them, like because Thriller, of course, obviously is a prime example of it. Bad, you brought up too, but they were these epics in terms of videos where it also reminded me back when porn had like a plot, like the videos. They always had it had like a plot to it, right? It was like, oh, there's a bad guy and a villain, and then there was an ending to it too, right? It was these television events. Now, trust me, I don't remember when porn had plots. Nowadays, none of them have plots.
I love where you took this, Rod. I love where you took this.
But exactly. But anyway, she probably shouldn't have taken it there. But the videos used to be like that too. I don't watch videos these days, so I don't know if they're that elaborate. But I remember them being television events where mom, dad, everybody was like, no, we got to watch the Michael Jackson video for Smooth Criminal comes out, this time we're going to watch it.
They made Captain EO for Epcot Center.
Oh, that's right.
Which was basically a glorified couple music videos put together. But that was a thing that they did with George Lucas.
3D glasses.
The 3D glasses, but it was a Michael Jackson thing. And then the best part about that was that they did it, and then Disney was like, there's way too many hip thrust and humping in this video. They can't have that. It's for Disney. You can't have them just hip thrusting this whole time.
It's Michael Jackson. But I agree, man. Like I do miss the days of those like epic music videos that were almost like movies. Now it feels like most artists do videos because they have to. You need a visual. And so a lot of times it's just kind of rinse and repeat. Whereas like back then it was a full on. I mean, I'm sure those budgets for those videos were 7 figure.
You're probably right. Yeah. But it was, like I said, but it was worth it though, because I bet the ratings were through the roof too. We actually watched videos. We watched MTV as a family during that time. That was wild to do that.
That's the biggest marketing piece you could have for your songs.
Back then.
Yeah, it really was. Like it was that and the radio were really how we got music, you know?
Yeah, no, I remember like going home to watch like the top 10 like countdown of the videos and stuff.
Oh man, I would videotape so many different shows on. I would record them on MTV and just watch it over and over. I was such a dork, but
that wasn't dorkish, man. That's what you did. So like that's what you was doing. If it was the cool kids back.
Because then you didn't have to buy the music. You know, you could just record it off of on the VHS and just watch it. And I was so sad. I had a VHS hooked up to, I guess this is illegal, a VHS hooked up to my cassette tape. And I would just record the song onto I would make these mixtapes from MTV videos. It was I mean, the quality must have been so poor.
I know I did it off of the radio.
I did that too.
I did it off the radio.
Yeah.
Which it was great when you got the tape deck that had two, that you could do it all in one versus holding up a tape deck to the radio to get the song.
I did both, man. I did both, as well as I did purchase a lot of music that's still sitting in my garage of, thousands of CDs that I have no use for. But
I purchased those a few years ago. My wife, she was like, "What are you doing?"
I can't do it, man.
Yeah, I could, because I'm with that with DVDs now. I have so many DVDs now, and I can't bring myself to throw all of them away, even though I don't use them and I can't use them.
Right.
I can't bring myself to throw them away. I can't.
I feel you on that, man. It's just like, I don't know how I'm ever going to do it, because those were I could tell you where I bought most of them, like what store. Like I was just, oh man. Those
Tower Records.
Yep. Tower. Waterloo. Best Buy. Technophilia.
Yeah, that's good. All right. We know Nick has got, I know you're pressed for time. Sorry, sitting here just kind of going through all these random topics. All right, let's get to Setlist ATX. We appreciate Nick's time. We always start on Hump Day, so give us the start of Setlist ATX for this week.
Yeah, got a show tonight at Mohawk, one of my favorite venues in Austin. Side Piece, as well as over at the beautiful Paramount Theater. John Sebastian and Jimmy Vivino will be bringing their American roots music. And then tomorrow out at Germania Amphitheater at Coda, for all you Sublime type fans, Slightly Stupid and Dirty Heads will be out there. And then a big Texas country show out at Waterloo Records on an in-store. This one will actually be really cool. Randy Rogers will be doing something there, and he's a big artist, so him doing a Waterloo in-store, that one's going to be packed out. And a really good two-piece Americana band that I like is doing a show at Broken Spoke Chaparral. They're really, really good if you haven't seen them. And then Del Rio, Texas's finest, William Beckman, who's kind of everybody's pick to be the next big kid out of Texas. He will be at Scoot In with Juliana Rankin. And then Friday we got Big Frida. If you've never seen her, the New Orleans bounce sound, that'll be over at Mohawk, which is a really fun show. It's just a big party. Yeah. And then I'd describe it as more like experimental hip hop, kind of trap, R&B. JPEG Mafia will be at Stubbs. That show will be packed, as well as Jared Leto's band will be out at the Germania Amphitheater, 30 Seconds to Mars, with one of my personal favorite bands, AFI, and a band named Poppy and Kenny Hoopla. And then as over at Whitewater, Cody Jinks will be there, who is just this guy who's just built the biggest underground following in the country, and all he does is sell records and tickets. He's a machine. So he'll be at Whitewater for the first night with Tanner Usray on Friday, and the second night on Saturday over at Whitewater. And then, man, some old school Houston right here. Devin the Dude will be over at Empire. Man, I remember listening to him growing up.
Oh,
And then
no doubt. There'll be a certain crowd there, I guarantee you.
Oh
There'll
yeah, What a
be,
Job was my jam. That was such a good song.
And I wish I was one of them. The dude comes up.
Yeah, exactly. And then Patrick and I were just talking about one of Austin's finest, Black Odyssey. For you fans of funk music, Juwan Elcott is one of the most talented humans in this city. And the guy we were just talking about, he's the biggest hustler there is, but he's got songs with George Clinton. He shared the stage with George Clinton. He has Wiz Khalifa on his record, Harriet Dukwa, Joey Badass, like a lot of really cool artists. If you haven't checked out Black Odyssey, he has a brand new record called 1-800-Fantasy, which is awesome. So check that out. That's a cool one. And then Sunday, probably the biggest artist to come out of Austin / Conroe, Texas in forever, Parker McCollum will be at Whitewater Amphitheater with Corey Kent. And then Monday's a little bit lighter with Labor Day, but the always Blue Monday with Soul Man Sam at Antone. So that's always a fun one to go check out. And then huge radio rock show at the Moody Center with 21 Pilots.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite Latin kind of cumbia pop bands, Como Las Movies, will be at Hotel Vegas. And then legendary country artist Winona from the Judds, Winona Judd, will be doing an ACL taping at ACL Live. That'll be cool. And then a hardcore show for us hardcore dorks, Polaris with Bless the Fall at Emos.
I like that. Let me ask you this before we let you go, because I know you got stuff going on. Are you going to the game this weekend?
I'm planning on it, man.
Right. Okay.
It's gonna be a little warm.
I heard the temperature is supposed to be a little bit lower than anticipated.
I checked last week, so that's good.
I don't know, but I
think
could
the
be wrong
rain
about that too.
coming in may have knocked it down a little bit.
Oh, there you go.
The high right now is at 91, but there is a 54% chance of rain.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
See, there you go.
For game predictions right there, 50% chance of rain.
That means, it'd be a little bit cooler out there. So, okay, if you don't go, let me ask you this, because this is the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, and we'll let you go. Who scores the first touchdown for Texas?
Man, I voted for a little bit of the dark horse on this one. I voted for Silas Bolden, but because I see it as, I think Jaden's the easy choice.
Yeah,
but my other real dark horse on this one is I'm just gonna throw it out there, Quinn Ewers.
Think he runs one in?
Yep. I think they're gonna be sitting back pretty heavy in coverage on that first drive. So I wouldn't be surprised if Quinn breaks a 15-yard run and waltzes in.
As long as he learns how to slide. As long as he learns how to slide.
Quinn. Yes, I agree. Let's encourage him to slide, get out of bounds, get down. Don't take those licks, Quinn. But that's a good point. I like that. And he's been scrambling a lot more lately. All right. Appreciate you, Nick. You are the man. Thanks for the time. Can't wait to talk to you down the line, brother. Have a great day.
Thank y'all, as always, for having me. Appreciate y'all.
That is the one and only Nick Shuley, always dropping the knowledge on Setlist ATX. We appreciate his time. All right, you know what? Let's just take an early break. We'll take an early break, and we'll just make next segment a smorgasbord of Texas football. We'll do Rod's rant. We'll throw that in there. I got a couple of NFL notes, one about Xavier Worthy. Got a Trent Williams nugget I want to get in there because the 49ers could be dealing with a real potential dire, disastrous situation on the horizon if they don't figure out this Trent Williams deal. So we'll do that. All that and more when we come back. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. We got a few items we're just going to throw into the mix here. Talk some Texas, Colorado State. We'll talk some NFL. We're supposed to have the rant about a specific topic of the deep ball coming back to the University of Texas and why the deep ball may work a little bit better. The connection may be a little bit more effective this year rather than last year. So we'll get to that too coming up here. But let's first, I want to get to this NFL topic. The NFL announced earlier this week that they're not going to use their automated laser technology to determine first downs. They said they're not going to utilize their electronic system to measure first downs during the 2024 regular season. The league continued to test the system during the preseason, and they left open the possibility of getting rid of the chain gang and using this new automated electronic system to determine first downs. But instead, the system will go into effect no earlier than 2025 that season. And the sticks and chain system measuring first downs is still going to be used. And even after they use, which they said is inevitable, they're going to get to laser automated electronic technology to determine first downs. When they get there, they're still going to have the chains on the sideline in case, obviously, the technology goes haywire and something screws up and there's some technical difficulty. But you're not going to get that technological advancement this season. And I saw this is a take from, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Matt Money Smith who had it. And it made me think about the NFL, because one thing the NFL loves about the chain gang is they love the drama of it, right? It is they bring the chain gang out, old guys, walking out with the chain gang, and they stick the first piece down, and they stick it down at the line of scrimmage, and then they stretch out the chains, and then they slowly lower the other piece of the apparatus down near the football, and then the crowd reacts if it's going to be short or if it's a first down. If it is, you get the dramatic demonstrative signal from the ref that it is a first down, and the crowd cheers or the crowd's upset. And if it's not, then the ref, he'll say it's not a first down, and then you get the signal for fourth down. And even in that, the ref will let you know dramatically how short you are. He'll give you the actual, with his finger, he'll give you, with his hands, he'll give you the actual length that you are short, all right, from the first down. So it's a very dramatic thing. And the NFL looks at their product as a television product. That's why they're so successful. It's the number one television show in America. And the reason it's the number one television show in America is the NFL is always looking at how do we craft this product to be a television product. And that's why they infuse drama. That's why they're getting rid of the old kickoff, and they got a new kickoff, because that was a dead play and it was a bad television product. When people get up from the television to go do something while that play is happening, that means a bad play, and it means bad for television. And with that being said, they wanted to get rid of it because they're all about, hey, how does this translate on TV? And I think the new first down technology that they have right now, they haven't figured out how to translate that drama, how to replicate the drama of the chain gang just yet. They'll figure it out. But I think that's one of the things that's holding it up, because right now, this comes from Matt Money Smith of Petros and Money. And he was on the sideline at Real Money Smith. He was on the sideline apparently when they were testing one of these new automated first down systems. All right, the automated electronic system. He was there because they did it during the preseason a few times. And what he said was, it is nowhere near ready. He said it was used 3 times in our three preseason games, took double the time it would take the chain gang, and everyone awkwardly stood around waiting for the ref to announce whether or not it was a first down. That does not sound like that's going to be thrilling television or dramatic television. So I think ultimately they want to work that out. Now, work out the kinks of the actual technology itself, but then work out how to replicate the drama of it, because that's what the NFL is all about. Right? That's why it's the number one TV show in America, because everything is viewed through that lens. Everything. How does it translate to TV? And I don't know if the electronic first down automation, I don't know if it translates just yet as well as they want to dramatically. That's my take on it. I think they, and by the way, it will, and they'll have to get it that way, but I think they're still working out how they want to do it.
I like that they're trying to make it sound like in 2024, the technology is them putting it into this machine and it's just clanking and churning out and smoke's coming out. And then it just prints out the words first down and you go first down. Oh, that was what it was. This is pretty antiquated material. I don't know if we're going to be able to finish. Come on. I think that they have to have something that was a little quicker or better. I don't know how it could possibly be as slow as they're making it out to be. I get maybe they were doing it for dramatic effect or some other reason.
Yeah, they screwed it up probably. Yeah.
But I think
that's what it is.
Tennis does this. Tennis has been doing it for a long time. Where if there's a call that's they have linemen, so they have the natural person that's there to make the call. And if someone says I challenge that because I saw it different, they will cut to the screen. The screen will show a representation of the ball hitting on the line. It'll show it squashed down and everything. It'll show the mark as the ball bounces off where it hit and if it touched the line or not. So whether it is in or out, it does it in a way that it shows the ball. Everyone's happy. You get to see if it's in or out, and everybody goes, "Okay, the machine said it. The computer said that this is what it is. We agree, and we move on." I think you can do that with this and make it to where you get the little 3D representation of the ball. And then having it going forward and then forward progress, you can tell where forward progress stops. You can do it with the sound of the whistle and have it keyed in of this is when the whistle blows and play a little sound effect of the whistle. So people can go, oh, well, the ball advanced after the whistle. So now it has to move back and you get the perfect spot of the ball and that goes down and that's with the marker and everything looks and you get to see it all and everybody goes, it's real. And we saw it all happen. It was done quicker than the dramatic bringing the chains out and a guy spotting the ball just wherever he thought it was. And then they roll these chains out and go, well, wherever I said it wasn't enough. It's worked, but I think there's a new way to do it. I did like on the text line we had CP53 suggested they use the Toy Story figures to do it.
They probably will on like the Nickelodeon broadcast when they have those games.
But that he brings up the point. I'm like, wait, so we can do an entire game where every player is represented by a character in a thing, but we can't tell where the ball is.
Yeah,
that technology's out there.
Yeah.
But we can put a game on Nickelodeon with cartoon characters doing the entire game in almost real time.
Yeah, so I agree because I love your idea about the 3D simulation of the players, having where you can almost unpack like any scrum or guys being tackled by multiple players. Well, and they have chips in balls. They got computer chips in the balls, so it has like the laser technology. They'll be able to tell exactly where it fell.
Yeah, and field. I mean, and you can do it to where the players are translucent, pretty much.
Yeah,
so you can always see the ball.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And it can be dramatic and be really cool. They just haven't figured out how to do it. But once they figure out how to add the drama, they'll have, as you point out, now you have accuracy on top of all that, which is the number one priority, that they be more accurate with the placement of the football.
There's a lot of money bet on these games now.
Yes, exactly. You cannot afford, because trust me, there are people that with all the access to NFL properties and products, you can track. I'm sure somebody somewhere is doing it. How often this ref is misplacing this football, and if that's the case, does he have some type of agenda? And then the conspiracy theory start, and you don't want any of that.
I mean, there's some Houston football fans, some Houston Cougars football fans who would tell you, that was the case.
Totally agree. No question about it. I totally agree with you. And I, as a Longhorn fan, even watched it and went, that's a bad spot.
Yeah, no, we all did. I mean,
we said, bad spot.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, but
yes,
you are bad at your job.
Yeah, like I'm happy it's a bad spot, but that is a bad spot.
It's when you get rung up for food and you're like, that price seems wrong. I'm gonna take it, but that price seems wrong.
Or they forget to ring something up. You're like, she didn't ring it up, but they put it in the bag. I don't see it on my receipt.
A whole bag. I got everything.
$8? Should I go back and you know what? I don't want to waste her time. I don't want to bother her. I don't want her to feel bad that she didn't do her job. We gonna keep it going. Yeah, exactly. No, I'm with you. So we'll see. It will happen though in 2025. I think by then they'll work out the drama. Okay, let's get to. Here's another random story I wanted to get to about Xavier Worthy. Then we'll jump to some of the other NFL topics. So I was seeing that Xavier Worthy, he ran 19 preseason routes. I'm trying to keep up with how they're going to utilize Xavier Worthy, because I think in that offense, man, he's going to be a star. I found this pretty peculiar. He ended up, out of his 19 preseason routes, he ran deep routes 47% of the time. He ran what they consider a deep route, which is, I believe, a route over 20 yards or more down the field. So he is definitely going to be the vertical guy. Now, they throw it to him every time? No, they didn't throw it to him every time. He did have a deep receiving touchdown from Carson Wentz. I saw him on another deep over route they ran. That was a really nice concept, allowed him to run away from defenders, run to daylight. You want him on those movement routes. But that is a really high number. So either there's two things that are at play here. He's going to be a decoy. Probably, I would say the first part of the season, he's going to be more of a decoy, because teams, even in the preseason, they're respecting his reputation as a speed demon. I mean, why wouldn't you? He set the record for the 40-yard dash at the combine. So when he runs something deep, he's got gravity. He's taking defenders with him. He is. And what that is going to do, it's going to force defenders to pick their poison. You can either defend the deep ball with Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, who they're bringing into it. They have him on either side. And Hollywood Brown's hurt right now, but before that, their plan was to have him on either side, and those guys just streaking down the field, running deep vertical routes and forcing your safeties to respect that verticality. And if they do, then Travis Kelce just gets to paint and freestyle and improvise routes and get open underneath. And he's got more room to do it because he took the safeties away. So now he's got more room, short and intermediate area, to just work his magic. And I've watched Travis Kelce, looked at his route trees. He does not run precision routes with angles and right. Nope, none of that. He's just trying to get open. He's just, you can look at it. It's all zigzag. It looks like some kid coloring in a coloring book who can't color in the lines. It's all over the place, but he's just trying to get open. He's trying to find space to get open. And it was tougher last year because teams were flooding. They were flooding those short intermediate areas and making those passing windows really small because there was no vertical threat in this offense. So why would I defend the vertical passing game? I'm going to have my safeties kind of sit at a certain depth. They're still too deep, but they're going to sit at a certain depth because you can't really threaten this vertical because you don't really have receivers to do it. Now that you got the receivers to do it and the speed to do it, teams have to respect the vertical. And if they don't want to respect the vertical and they want to flood the short intermediate area because they think that's where Travis Kelce is going to beat me, then just fine. They're going to take that shot with Xavier Worthy or take that shot with Hollywood Brown. So you're basically asking teams to pick their poison. And that's why it's troubling. So I think he's going to be a decoy half the time. And I think the other half of the time when teams stop respecting or they don't respect that deep vertical shot by him or the verticality, they're going to throw it to Xavier Worthy. So 47% is a really high number. That's basically 50% of your routes are deep routes. That's usually not the case. Even at Texas for him, that's not the case. But it shows you that was part of the plan when they brought in Xavier Worthy. Let's see how many teams are actually going to respect his speed deep. And if they don't respect it, let's make them pay for that disrespect, if you will. And getting back to I do think he could end up being one of the best deep threats in all of the NFL. That's the irony of it, because he wasn't necessarily that at Texas. Like he and Quinn, even though he's got all the raw material to be a great deep threat, they never really had an effective deep connection. And it's possible that Quinn and Texas could in the last, because in the last 7 games of last season, he really improved in his deep ball connection. It's possible, even with all these new faces, that the deep ball for Texas could make a comeback within his offense. Remember, Sark really wanted the deep ball to be part of the identity of the offense. They weren't great at converting the deep passes, so he curtailed some of his deep throws, especially the ones he would throw on first down. He loved throwing deep balls on first downs on his first 2 years, and then learned that, hey, that puts us behind the chains. If you don't have a Bijan and a Rojo, it's going to be really hard to make up those yards on second down, and then you end up at third and long is a death sentence, and Sark didn't want to do that. So I'm glad that he evolved, but he still wants the deep ball to be part of the identity of the offense. It just wasn't a natural strength for Quinn, but Quinn's gotten much better. First, if you will look at his previous 15 starts, so basically look at his last 7 starts. Take his last 7 starts, 43% completion percentage on deep balls, only off target on 25% of his deep balls, and he had a 92 QBR. So he got much better toward the end of the year. And I went back and tracked it. If you will look at those, those last 7 starts, I mean, his accuracy was better. I thought the touch was better on the deep balls overall. I thought the timing, the anticipation was better on the deep balls. So I think he actually did get better. In addition to, I think, the chemistry with the receivers. But prior to those last 7 starts, deep ball accuracy, 24% completion percentage, off target on 44% of his deep ball throws. And you had, I believe, a QBR of 23 on deep ball throws. He went from below average to poor to now being above average. And I think this year he could take a step to being a really good deep ball passer. Now, him and X-Man, ironically, never really, in my opinion, they never cultivated a true lethal deep ball connection between them. Xavier Worthy off target rate was 22.4%. That was highest of any wide receiver in that class, any of the top wide receivers in that class. His 9.2 yards per target per target on average on deep passes was the worst of any of the projected non-undrafted Power 5 wide receivers in that class. The 94 deep targets in his career, only a 25% completion rate on those. They never really found the groove on the deep passes. And it wasn't all Xavier Worthy and it wasn't all Quinn, but I found this stat that was interesting. So when you're tracking players' average speed, they tracked them on routes. And last year on the routes, just running routes, the Xavier Worthy had a top speed of 21.02 miles per hour. Now, he was clocked at 22.7 miles per hour by Real Analytics. That was on a punt return. If you don't remember, it was on a punt return. So that's how fast he got as a ball carrier. But this is him just running routes. They had him at 21.0 as his top speed running routes. On deep routes, I should say, on a deep routes. And they said his deep route speed would actually drop when he was running 9 routes or routes over 20 yards or more down the field. And his deep route speed ended up being a 19.9 miles per hour. So his top speed on running routes, just running routes down the field, was 21 miles per hour, but his deep route speed was 19.9. So he did a good job of regulating his speed. He's a track guy, so he can regulate his speed. But when I looked at Isaiah Bond's top speed on deep routes, his deep route speed, it was 20.6 miles per hour. So not saying that, both of those guys have world-class speed. I mean, I think it was 18 plays for Isaiah Bond last season where he hit 20 miles per hour, and the only player that had more was Xavier Worthy. So they're different skill sets, but they do have that commonality of world-class speed. And I was just pointing out that Xavier Worthy, there were times where he is regulating his speed on deep balls. And sometimes for quarterbacks, that's hard to gauge, guy regulating his speed. But if you're thinking, oh, man, Xavier Worthy, if you can't throw to Xavier Worthy on a deep ball, you can't throw to anybody. Isaiah Bond actually has a higher top end speed on deep routes than Xavier Worthy, just based on the analytics. So it's not necessarily always about, oh, man, he can go. You can't overthrow this guy because he can go get any football. He's just that fast. Now when you're running speed cuts and you're trying to set up defenders, your quarterback's got to throw the ball to a certain spot. Oftentimes, it's just about your ability to track the football, not about your top speed when you're running a deep route. So for Xavier Worthy and Quinn, even though they didn't have the compatibility and the connection all the time on the deep balls, it's possible that Quinn could have a better connection with a Ryan Wingo or Isaiah Bond or Silas Bowden. If I had to pick 3 wide receivers out of this receiving core to be the most, I would say, the most successful and I would easily the most lethal of the deep threats among this group, I'd probably go with Bond because of the world-class elite speed to pull away, Ryan Wingo because of the combination of size and speed and strong hands. He's got it all. And I'd take Silas Bowden, even though he's small. His catch radius is uncanny for a guy that size. He's got really good contested catch ability for someone his size too. And he makes a lot of wild plays, and he can really get on top of defenders, stack defenders, and give his quarterback a wide window to throw the football to on deep balls, and then he'll go get it and attack the football. So those are my 3 guys I think going to be the best deep threats. And if Quinn can pick up where he left off last season, last year overall, 33% completion rate on passes 20 yards or more down the field, and that was 76th in college football. Like I said, not very good. But if you go look at the last 7 starts, that number rises to 43%. So if he picks up where he left off last season, I think Quinn and the deep ball could really have a resurgence within the Sark offense. He definitely wants to bring it back. All right, let's get to
you want to
another
hit some
topic.
breaking news real quick?
Oh, let's do it. I love breaking news. Hope it's good, not bad breaking. Bad breaking, good breaking news.
Breaking news: Dalvin Cook has agreed to terms with the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, all right. That is another veteran presence in there. What has Dalvin Cook done for us lately is the question.
Well, the question is, how bad was the Jets O-line last year? Was
It was pretty bad.
Was the Jets O-line so bad that Dalvin Cook still had something left in the tank, even though he had been moved on by the Vikings and was god awful last season? And then this Cowboys O-line will give him some room, or is it that he's already washed and it's another wash guy? But
it's a great question. I would say Dalvin Cook in the passing game last year, or at least 2 years ago, more than anything. Go back to 2022. 2023 was kind of a disaster, as you pointed out. He's with 2 teams, and he was dealing with injuries. So I'll go to 2022. He got 39 receptions in 2022. I didn't realize he caught that many passes. Had 56 targets for the Vikings. So that's a guy you can use in the passing game. Did have 2 receiving touchdowns. And in the running game in 2022, he was at 4.4 yards per rush. Obviously, in 2023, that dropped to 3. That dropped off a cliff, actually. 3.2 yards per rush. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in saying 2022 because you had injuries and a lot of turnover in 2023 with the Jets and with Baltimore. But even his last year in Minnesota, not sure you got much out of him.
No, Minnesota moved on from him to go to Madison, who then they have moved on from and went to Aaron Jones because that experiment failed pretty heavily as well. Look, I'm happy they're doing something. I just don't know if this is the right something. So it's something. You needed to bring in another running back. We said that there wasn't a lot of guys that were cut that you would think would be, top of mind and really pique your interest if you're the Cowboys. Now you could probably trade a 6th or 7th round pick and get somebody much better with a lot more upside and a possibility that maybe they could be somebody that you would keep another year after this even and get him on another good deal next year. But Dalvin Cook is headed to the Cowboys, signed his deal.
They needed another body in there. It needed a veteran. He's a veteran body. But I unfortunately for him, he has followed the typical arc of a running back's career, where basically they peak at 26. That's the numbers tell you for the last 20 years that most running backs, they're going to peak at 26, 27. And after that, you're going to get a precipitous drop off in productivity. Probably about, you'll see their average careers peak at 27. You'll see the rushing totals drop by 15% by the time they're 28, 25% by the time they're 29, and obviously about 40% by the time they're 30. And he's not even there yet. So I'm not saying he's that old, but you go look at his career in around 26. Actually, for him, it was probably 25 is when he started to peak. In 26, 27, he started to peak. And then after that, 28, that's it. Running backs, 27 is about that's about the peak for most backs. There are some freaks out there, but for most backs, 27 years old, that's their peak. And after that, they start a precipitous decline. And look at his career. Look at it. He's 1,000-yard back at 24, 1,000 yards at 25, 1,000 yards at 26, 1,000 yards at 27, and then at 28, drops off a cliff. Crazy. That's life as a running back, man. It's hard.
Yeah,
it's tough.
It's tough. Oh, but you can go over to the Cowboys retirement home and him and Zeke are gonna be hanging out. And
seriously, that. Yeah, but if this was, like I said, this was like four or 5 years ago, man, that's a sexy backfield.
Yeah.
But it's not. And like I said, I used to love me some Dalvin Cook. I thought he was a hell of a player in his prime. He really was. But I think, unfortunately, as most running backs. At 28, you're past that prime. It's done. All right. So there you go. Cowboy. Actually, he's 29. Take it back. So he's 29 years old. Way past the prime. All right, we come back. We'll get into who said that. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice. We have to guess, recall who said that. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a One Artist Wednesday, and the featured artist today is Michael Jackson, a tribute to Michael Jackson, who would have had a birthday coming up. So shout out to my man Patrick for hooking him up on a One Artist Wednesday when we go deep into the catalog of one specific artist, group, or band. And today that's Michael Jackson. Also, I thank my man Patrick for hooking us up for the topic for the big fat poll of the day. The topic for the big fat poll of the day, a simple one, but related to Texas football. Patrick wants to know who will score the first touchdown for Texas this season. Got another name. You can list it below and check it out. But right now, the leader, based on the results here, Jaden Blue. 68% of you voting saying you believe Jaden Blue is going to score the first touchdown for the Longhorns. I actually voted Jaden Blue too, so I'm a big fan of him. All right, let's get to who said that. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio, sometimes from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and then based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify who said that.
What are your expectations from this team?
I hear you. No, we I still tell our guys our expectations is just to get better every day. Like I tell, like we can't get everybody know when we suit up like you guys have. Like everybody wants to go win it all, right? That's always the goal. That's why we do what we do, right? We're trying to go get that Lombardi, but we don't get there overnight. So enjoy the process of just getting better every day. And when we look up in February and we're there playing for that Lombardi, that's what's gonna make it really special.
Right.
No. All right, that's D'Amico Ryans. He was actually visiting with Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco. What's the name of their
The
podcast?
Knights, the Night something.
Yes, you're right. It's something like that. Yes,
like the
you're
nightcap or the night bar or the
I
night
think
drink.
the nightcap sounds right. Actually, I think you're right about that. Yeah, so that is D'Amico Ryan talking about trying to get to that championship game, man, trying to get the Lombardi. I'm glad he brought it up. He said that's ultimately the goal every year, but it's a process, certainly a process for the Texans. So there you go, D'Amico Ryan. That's who said that. Thank you, Patrick, for that. We appreciate it. Also, tomorrow we'll come back and we'll talk more about the Cowboys acquisition of Dalvin Cook and what that means. That story just broke as well. And also tomorrow we'll be breaking down some more of the college football action, not just Texas, Colorado State. We're still talking about some of the big games, marquee games coming up this weekend. It's going to be a big weekend in college football. And then, of course, we'll continue to break down Texas, Colorado State too.
By the way, can we just say, if we had black and white technology that Michael Jackson used in 1991, we can't get a ball spotted correctly in 2024. He was merging faces together in 1991.
Races and faces.
And you
races
can't,
and faces.
You want to tell me you can't spot a ball in 2024?
That was, some people remember that was like controversial. People were like uncomfortable with that.
The technology,
video.
Yeah, the video.
It was like naked people of different races.
They were like shoulders up.
Faces. Well, I don't know. I'm just saying people said they were naked.
They shoulders.
But they were
up.
still all right when they were topless. Then whatever. No. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? I remember the video. I remember it being kind of controversial at the time. But hey, it was MJ, baby. All right. Thanks, Patrick, for all of your work on One Artist Wednesday. Thanks for everything you do. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We're talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.